Hello everyone, and welcome to Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting series on what if Naruto had the tails of the fox sage. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. The battle was nearing its end. Sasuke in his cursed seal level 2 form stared at Naruto as he was covered with the red chakra. The two of them had been like brothers. They had fought together, trained together, and argued with each other. Naruto would not let Sasuke throw all of it away just for the sake of his revenge, and he would not break his promise to Sakura. Sasuke would not let anyone stand in the way of his revenge. In the end, their desires clashed and only one could survive. Kakashi was racing towards his two students. It wasn't until he had finished his mission and reported back that he learned of Sasuke's betrayal. His dogs had located where the two were fighting, and he raced to stop them before they did something that they would regret. His mission was to bring back Sasuke, and he would do just that. Naruto and Sasuke began to power up their best attacks. They could have said something. However, the time for words had come and gone. Now this was their only choice. They leapt into the air and launched their attacks. Habataku Chidori. Rasengan. The two attacks clash for a second and then they hit their targets. Sasuke's attack pierces through Naruto's chest. The Rasengan hits Sasuke in the chest a moment later and he was sent flying into the wall. Naruto fell down into the water and began to be washed down the stream. With his last ounce of strength, he was able to grab a hold on a rock. A moment later Kakashi arrived. He was now faced with a choice: who to save. If he saved Naruto, he would most likely die, judging by the huge hole in his chest, on the way back to the village. If he saved Sasuke, Orochimaru would not have his next host body and the mission would be a success. He could try to save both of them, but there might be more sound nins coming and he couldn't move fast enough with the extra weight. Kakashi, sensei, muttered Naruto. He reached out his free hand for a moment before it fell down. He knew his sensei would help him. After all, he was the one who said that those who disobey the rule were trash and those who abandon their comrades are less than trash. Sure. In the past he had always ignored him for Sasuke, but this was different. Kakashi looked at his blonde student for a second with a look of pity in his eyes. He then turned and picked up Sasuke. He turned back to Naruto. "You did well, Naruto," he said. "I'm sorry, but it looks like you will die here." At the sound of those words, Naruto let go of the rock he was holding and was washed down the river. Soon, he was face down in the water, drifting towards the ocean. "No!" shouted the Kyuubi. "I will not go out like this. Wake up, Kit, wake up." Kyuubi got no response. Inside the spirit room, Naruto lay in front of the large kitsune face down as well. "Let me see. Lack of oxygen, loss of blood, damaged lung, and body temperature is getting dangerously low. I doubt I can save us both, but I'll do my best." Sometime later Kakashi arrived at the village hidden in the leaves with Sasuke. He quickly made his way to the hospital and made sure the doctors treated him right away. Once everything was taken care of, he exited the room and ran into Tsunade. "Ah, Kakashi," she said with a smile. She was happy that so far there had been no deaths and it looked like the mission had been a success. "I heard from the guards that you just returned. Good work. So, what happened?" "When I arrived the battle was over," he replied. "My best guess would be that Naruto fought with Sasuke and knocked him out with the Rasengan." "That's very impressive," she said. "I'll have to congratulate him later. Right now I have to." She stopped when she saw Kakashi hold up his hand. "I'm not done," he said. Sasuke also used his own trump card on Naruto. "When I got there, Naruto looked like he was on death's door. He had a huge hole in his chest and was bleeding very badly." Tsunade's eyes went wide. She then began to shake her head. This couldn't be happening. He had to be all right. He had to be. "I was faced with a choice," continued Kakashi. "I chose to save the one who had the most likely chance to survive. Naruto is dead. I watched him as his body floated down the river in the Valley of Ends." At that, Tsunade fell down on her hands and knees. This couldn't be true. How could that loudmouth boy be dead? She began to do the only thing that she could do: cry. That night the village had a celebration. News of Naruto's death spread like wildfire. Very few in any didn't attend for many different reasons. Choji and Neji were both in critical condition. Shikamaru was busy checking on his teammate and blaming himself for Naruto's death. Ino was lashing out at everyone who came close to her and started saying that they were glad the demon brat was gone. She didn't know the blonde well enough, but it tore her up inside to see so many people happy about his death. Tenten refused to go outside and join the party for the same reason. Lee and Guy were crying that someone as youthful as Naruto had died. Hinata was in her bedroom crying her eyes out. Shino and Kiba just sat in their old classroom, staring at nothing. This was where they had the most interaction with Naruto. Kakashi just stood by the memorial stone, and Sakura, well. Sakura was sitting next to Sasuke's bed. She had a mix of emotions. She was happy that Sasuke was alright. However, the price seemed too high. Naruto had gone this far for her, just to make her happy. Was that what love was? To go to the ends of the earth just to make that one person happy? Naruto had given everything for her, and how did she repay him? By hitting him and calling him an idiot. She felt low, very low. Tsunade had tried to send a search party to retrieve Naruto, however. What do you mean no? He could still be alive, she shouted at the council. We do not have the manpower, said Homura. Also, from what Kakashi has reported, it would be a waste of time. The beast is dead. If he was alive, who would want to save him, said Kaharu. We are better off without him. It took everything Tsunade had not to kill them both. It became harder when they decided to pardon Sasuke. They claimed that since Naruto was a demon and murder only counts when it is a human killing another human, that Sasuke didn't murder Naruto. They then claimed that since he was under the influence of the cursed seal that he could be held responsible for his actions. The next thing she was denied was a funeral for him. They simply didn't want any remnant of the boy to exist in the village. In the end, all she was able to do was give the boy his wake that would be held in his apartment. The next morning, Tsunade got up and began to prepare for the wake. This was her first time at Naruto's apartment and was shocked at what she saw. All over the door and wall on the outside was graffiti that called him a demon and wishing he would die soon. She opened the door and saw how he lived. The place was a mess. Some of the windows had been broken and several of his things had been stolen, like his microwave. It took about an hour to clean up everything. During this time she found 2 pieces of paper near his bed. She decided to read them. I want to that everyone who is here today, read the first one. I am happy to stand before you as the next Hokage. It has been a long road and I will do my very best for this village. The next part looked like it had been added to at different times. I want to thank Iruka for being there for me. You're like the big brother I never had and always wanted. To Kakashi, thanks for teaching me how to walk up trees. After that there was a black spot, as if Naruto was waiting to fill it with more stuff. To Sakura, I hope you have found what you were looking for and that you are happy. I also hope that you and Ino will stop fighting all the time. To Kiba, no hard feeling about a fight in the Chunin exam. I mean all's fair in love and war. To Jiraiya, thank you for taking time out of your busy perverted schedule to teach me my best moves. Hinata and Neji, I will do all I can to help you with the problems in your clan. Sasuke, I hope you can put the past behind you and look to the future. You can never move forward if you are continuously looking behind you. Tsunade Bachan, I'm glad you came back to the Leaf Village. I just want to say that you are the mother I never had. That is how I will always see you and know that you will always be in my heart. Now I hope you were listening because I'm not saying that again. It ended there. Tsunade relieved that this was the speech Naruto was preparing for when he became Hokage. She then turned her attention to the other paper on the desk and was shocked by what she read. To whoever finds this note, I am assuming that I am now dead. I have 2 requests. The first is that everything I own goes to Tucci and his daughter. It's the least I can do for all the meal I had there. My other request is that my speech is to be buried with me. If this village will just give me that, I can go to the next world happily, taking my dream with me. Well, that's all, Mr. Looter or whoever you are. And please don't feel bad for me. If I haven't made Hokage, then that means no one cares about me. I mean, who would cry for me? Tsunade stopped reading and began to cry. The note looked old, maybe a year or 2. He had placed all his fears and doubts in this one piece of paper and left it here. It was his last request to this village and she could only fulfill half of it. That night, only members of the Rookie 9, the Sand Trio, Team Guy, and Jiraiya showed up for his wake. To many of them, this was a shock to see how he had lived. It made them feel spoiled. One by one they approached his picture and said a few words. For once, Shikamaru didn't say it was troublesome. When it was Gaara's turn, everyone was shocked to hear what he had to say. Naruto, you were the one person I considered my friend, he said. When I heard that you were dead, I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe that someone like you could be stopped. You saved me from the darkness and yet I couldn't save you. Why couldn't I have been there for you? I will make it up to you. I will carry on your spirit and your dream in my village. I will try to love others and hold them close to my heart. With that, he got up and bowed before the picture of Naruto. The next one who shocked everyone was a latecomer, and it wasn't Kakashi. The man and his 7-year-old daughter went over to the picture and kneeled before it. Hiyashi then spoke. I'm sorry I never thanked you while you were alive. What you did for Neji was something that I could never do. Thanks to you, my family has begun to heal. I also admire what you did for Sasuke. I tried to keep my brother from certain doom just like you did, but unlike you I failed. I would have gladly given up my life to spare him from death. I am glad that you succeeded where I failed. One by one, the others said their goodbyes to the blonde. Tsunade honored his wishes. She was able to sell everything in his apartment and gave the proceeds to Tucci. A grave was set up for him in Wave Country, where he was seen as a hero and not a demon. Buried there was not a body, but a small box containing his speech. Jiraiya moved to Wave Country, refusing to step foot in the Leaf Village ever again. He kept in contact with Tsunade by mail and informed her and Gaara of Akatsuki's plans. It was rumored that he was giving up writing his porn books, feeling that he should have paid more attention to his student than naked women. Truly, he had taken Naruto's death hard. A week later, Sasuke tried to escape to the Sound Village once again. In the process, he wounded Sakura and killed a nurse, both who tried to stop him. This time, Tsunade sent Anbu to capture him and the mission was completed quickly. This time there was no escaping punishment. Tsunade thought about the death sentence, but didn't want to make Naruto's sacrifice seem meaningless. He was sentenced to a lifetime of imprisonment. In front of his cell hung a picture of Naruto, smiling at him. Tsunade felt that that was the best punishment for him, to forever stare at the face of the boy he killed. On the beach of another continent, a boy with blonde hair and an ugly tore-up orange jumpsuit washed to shore. However, there were a few things different about him. One was his ears had changed to resemble that of a dog, wolf, or fox. Think Inuyasha and Ya, they are on the same spot as Inwash's. Another thing was that he had a long tail that was the same color as his hair with a white tip. A girl, who was walking nearby, rushed over to him and checked his pulse. He's alive, she said. What did Kyuubi do to him? Where is Naruto? What new challenges await him? Jiraiya stood in front of a grave that had no body. This was the second student that he had lost. What made it worse were the similarities between his student and himself. Sasuke, like Orochimaru, had abandoned the village for his own personal gain. Naruto, like Jiraiya, went to stop him and bring him back. The only difference was that the blonde had succeeded, at the cost of his life. In a way Jiraiya was proud of the boy and yet that didn't make him feel any better. He could have learned so much more and done so much. But he gave up his life to save his selfish teammate who, at the moment, didn't give a damn that the boy was dead. Ibiki walked over to the grave and stood next to the frog sage. What are you doing here? Asked Jiraiya. I was away on a mission and just heard about what happened, he replied. I wanted to give my last respects to the boy. He chuckled for a moment as he remembered something. Yeah, no, I was pushing for the kid to get promoted. Jiraiya turned his head to look at Ibiki. In the first exam, he did something that no one was ever done before. He dispelled the fear I placed in Genin's. In a couple on sentences, everyone's fear and doubts vanished before my eyes. Also, in the third exam, he displayed the ability to think on his feet and never gave up. Those are the qualities that I look for in a leader. Sadly, most of the other examiners didn't agree with me. They said that his information gathering skills were pathetic and that he showed poor judgment when he went in close range to fight that Hyuga. In the end, Tsunade asked Kakashi he thought Naruto was ready. He said no and gave no reason. Jiraiya turned his head back to the grave and gritted his teeth. Let me guess, he thought Sasuke was ready, said Jiraiya with venom in his voice. He did. In fact, he made a huge fuss when it was decided that Sasuke won't advance. Jiraiya chuckled a bit and then let out a sigh. I'd better let him say his goodbyes as well. With that, He bit his thumb and summoned Gamabunta.
Jiraiya, said the toad, why have you summoned me?
Just thought you might like to say goodbye to Naruto, said Jiraiya. At this the large toad looked shocked for a moment. He took the pipe out of his mouth and set it down. When I felt the link that connected us break, I assumed that the kid had simply signed another contract. That is the only other way, other than death, that a person can end a contract with his summon. What a pity. Tell me, how did it happen? Jiraiya told the boss toad everything that he knew. At first, Gamabunta wanted to go and wring the Uchiha's neck. Jiraiya stopped him by saying that Naruto would have wasted his death if he did that. Calming down, Gamabunta grabbed a sake bottle from his belt and let a drop fall on the grave. Now, this was a big sake bottle, so when the drop landed it splashed on the two older men. With that, Gamabunta left. Back in the Leaf Village, Gaara and his siblings were getting ready to leave. They had stayed in the village to help teach at the academy. At the gates was Hinata, waiting for them. I wanted to say thank you for saying what you said Hinata to Gaara. And Naruto didn't have that many people around to call friends, so I think he appreciated it. I meant what I said, replied Gaara. My world was a dark and lonely place where only I existed. Then, when Naruto told me why he went such extremes to help someone else, I was confused. But I was even more confused when he said that he understood me. He described how I felt perfectly, and with that light entered my dark world. He saved me from a loneliness that stemmed from the hatred that my father and the rest of the villagers in the sand had for me. I know what it's like, replied Hinata. Gaara gave her a questioning look and she decided to explain herself. My father has resented me for years. Not just him, but the rest on my clan. So, I grew up with cold stares and unfeeling words. It might pale in comparison to your life, but I think I have an idea.
I see, replied Gaara. Perhaps we'll meet again and see if things have gotten better.
I would like that, she said. The three Sand siblings then left the village for their home. Tamari was wondering when she'd meet her lazy genius again. Kankuro was wondering when he could come back to scare the children. Gaara, well, he was thinking of a pale-eyed beauty that he'd just met and was wondering why his heart was pounding so much. Naruto was just waking up and was surprised that the first thing he saw when he woke up was a girl about his age leaning over him and staring at his face. His eyes became dish plates and his face turned red. This girl was an Uchiha. She had the same dark hair as Sasuke and Itachi. Not to mention that her Sharingan was activated. Good, you're awake, she said as she got up and deactivated her Sharingan. Naruto could now get a better look at her. He was right about her age. She looked like she was 13 or 14. Her hair was done in a similar style to Anko's and she was dressed in a red Chinese-style outfit that seemed similar to Tenten's except it looked like it was made for housework than fighting. I'll go and get my parent and some food for you. She gave him a kind smile and left. Naruto didn't know what to make of the situation. He was in a bed, dressed only in his boxers from what he could tell, and in some stranger's home. Also, there was the fact that this person was related to the Uchiha clan. When had any Uchiha been? Well, nice. All of the ones he had met seemed to have a stick up their ass and obsessed with power. Also, how could there be any more Uchihas since they were mostly dead? Where the hell did she come from? Then, Naruto had a scary thought. Don't tell me I have been unconscious and that's one of Sasuke's kids. This thought ended when two people walked into the room who bared a resemblance to Kisame and Itachi. Are you feeling all right? Asked the Uchiha man. He looked almost exactly like Itachi except for a few things. First was that he was a little pudgy and had a dark tan that comes from working in farm fields. He was wearing a plaid shirt and overalls. Naruto was in shock. I mean, this was just freaking him out. Naruto quickly got into the fetal position and began to suck his thumb. It took the family about 10 minutes to calm him down. Sorry, said Naruto as the family sat around him. I was just a bit confused. You both resembled people that, well, let's just say we didn't get along at all. I'm sorry if we scared you, said the shark lady. My name is Aoi Uchiha. This is my husband Daiki and my daughter Mai. She's the one who found you and brought you back here. What happened to you out there? Asked Mai suddenly. She then seemed to lean closer to Naruto. Was your ship attacked by pirates? What's with your ears and that tail? Are you from a different country? Naruto's ears perked when she mentioned his ears and tail. I don't have a tail and my ears are just fine, he said. To prove this he moved his hands up to where his ears should have been only to find nothing. He looked at Mai who was pointing at the top of her head. Realizing what she meant, he slowly moved his hands to his head and felt the new doggy-like ears. He then lifted his covers and saw that he did indeed have a bright, bushy, yellow tail with a wide tip. "Excuse me one moment," he said as Mii went into a meditative position. Naruto was soon staring at where the cage of Kyuubi should have been. However, it wasn't. The cage was open and instead of the fox demon were several hundred scrolls along the walls. In the center of the now fox-less room was a large scroll on a platform. Naruto rushed over to it, opened the scroll and began to read. It was a letter, if you can call it that, for him. "Dear Flesh Heap, great job, we both nearly died, that's to your stupidity.
You should have killed that bitch, taken his mate, and then had some fun. But no, you had to be a hero and think about his life. Do you have any idea what I had to do to keep you alive? There was massive blood loss, internal damage, lack of oxygen for your puny mind and heart, and those damn fish kept taking bites out of you. Did I mention I also had to use my chakra to keep your body from falling to the bottom of the ocean?
I was faced with a choice. Either we both die or I give up my life to save yours. Now, let's get something straight. I saved you for a couple of reasons. The first one was that I wanted to be free of you, and if it meant I had to die, then so be it. You're annoying as hell. Then there's the fact that your actions reflect on me. If you die, then I look weak and I can't have that. Finally, there's no easy way to say this, but I'm a virgin. Because of this, I never had any kids of my own, meaning that I have no one to pass on my legacy. All of my knowledge will be gone forever in my passing. Well, if I did have a kid, I'd want him to be a bit like you. Well, maybe smarter, stronger, better fashion sense, and quieter. But you've got gut and determination that are admirable. The way you have faced your problems has made me proud. Especially when I compare you to some of the others I could have been sealed in. Gay Sasuke. Lee just sends shivers down my spine, or Sakura who would have wasted my powers chasing that prick. Since I am now dead, my chakra is gone forever, but don't think I have left you with nothing. While I was fixing your body I was able to give you powers that should help you. I call it tail shift. There are a total of 9 tails and each one carries its own power. The first one is your normal self. While you are in this body you have your normal healing powers and can use jutsus. In this room is my knowledge including special jutsus that can be used by you thanks to your new fox traits. Also, you are automatically signed up to summon foxes instead of toads. The second tail is the fire tail. This tail will give you full control over heat and thermal energy. Also, it will give your punches an extra blast. While you are in this form your tail will turn red and the tip of your tail will be made of fire. The third tail is the water tail. Your tail will look like it was made of water and whenever an opponent tries to fight you the attacks go right through. Only ninjutsu will be able to harm you. Also you can breathe underwater. The earth tail will look like it is made of soil and rocks. This will be your Taijutsu mode because your strength is greatly increased to a level near Tsunade's.
The fifth tail is the lightning tail. Reflex and speed increase along with the ability to dematerialize into energy and travel as a mass of energy, moving at nearly the speed of light. When you are like this your tail will turn platinum. The sixth tail is the wind tail. In this state your tail will turn gray. In this form you can fly but only as fast as the wind can take you. The ice tail looks like it is made of ice. While in this state you can create weapons made of ice out of nothing. The wood tail is your 8th form. It grants you the ability to control plants of all kinds and to infuse chakra as a life source to heal living creatures, grow plants, or increase the power others. This one is green. The shadow tail is the last one. Your tail turns black and in this form you can vanish from sight along with others who are close to you. One last thing to consider is elemental manipulation. Since you will only be able to use your jutsus in your normal mode, I suggest you practice on your wind manipulation and add it to that Rasengan thingy. I hope your puny mind can remember all of that. Now, live long so I don't have to hear your annoying voice for a while. Signed, the great and powerful Kyuubi no Kitsune. Naruto was shocked. Kyuubi had given him power and it was amazing. This also meant that the cause of all of his sufferings was gone forever. When he got home, people would have to treat him like a person. Wait, home? Where the hell was he? How long had he been gone? What if they sent hunter nins after him?
Naruto came back to the real world where only a second had passed. I have to ask some questions, he said. Where am I and how long was I out? You have been here for about a week, but I don't know how long you were unconscious, said Daiki. As to where you are on the continent of the Celestial Dynasties. To be more specific, you are in the Milky Way dynasty. Naruto's expression became heavy. So I guess walking to the elemental countries is out of the question, he said with a light laugh. Indeed, replied Daiki. Ships only travel there maybe 3 times a year and tickets are very expensive. I have another question, said Naruto. How come I have seen your clan back where I come from? That's because we originated from there, said Aoi. It was about 250 years ago when we left. During that time, the clan wars were taking place. These wars were started to eliminate as many of the competition for the ninjas as possible. Many of us were caught in the middle of a war that we didn't want and hated. Also, many of the clans had rules that were too harsh. Our ancestors, along with many others, got together and sailed away. Since then, we have lived freely in this land and have used our skills and knowledge to help others. For example, because of the Sharingan's ability to copy others perfectly and prediction abilities allows the user to become a medic much faster. My daughter was the one who took care of you. There are, however, some who have become a problem by leading bandit gangs and such. Does that mean there are Hyugas here as well? Asked Naruto. Yes, replied Daiki. My grandfather was a Hyuga in fact. In this village we have Kamizurus, Hoshigakis, Uchihas, Kaguyas, Karamas and many others that have probably been whipped out. And that's just in this village. We are now spread out all over the continent along with the natives to this land. Well, said Aoi, we'd better let you get some rest and let you eat your meal. Mai. Where is the food you were supposed to bring? Crap, muttered Mai. I'll get it now. With that, the 3 of them left Naruto alone. Naruto decided to take this time and look at his surroundings. The room looked like it was used for guests seeing as the walls were bare and only had the bed and a dresser in it. A few moments later Mai came in with a tray and set it in front of him. On it was a bowl of rice, 3 pieces of fish, and some miso soup. Thanks, said Naruto as he began to dig into his food. Well, are you going to tell me? She asked. Tell you what? Asked Naruto before he took a bite out of his fish. How you got here, she said as she crossed her arms. You owe me that much seeing as I'm the one who found you. Now spill. Naruto sighed as he realized that she wouldn't let it go. I was in a fight, he began. My teammate decided to betray our village and I was part of the group to bring him back. In the end, I won. However, I was badly hurt and my sensei chose to help my teammate and left me to die. I guess I was washed out to sea and landed here. Damn, she said. I guess you must have some powerful bloodline to survive in that condition. Naruto let out a light chuckle. I guess you can all it that, he replied. Then he thought of something. Hey Mai, how can I make a lot of money really quickly? She looked confused for a moment. Why do you want to know? I need to get back home. There are people who must be worried about me. Well, not a lot but I still have to go back. Well, the fastest way is to join a bandit gang, said Mai as she crossed her arms. But, that would make you a criminal. Maybe becoming a bounty hunter would be better. The problem with that is you would get that attention of the bandits and they would hunt you down. I guess you could do odd jobs for a while. It may take a while but it is the safest. I doubt that your shinobi would like someone like me taking away their jobs anyways, said Naruto. To his surprise, Mai shook her head. We don't have any shinobi, she said causing Naruto's eyes to dishplate. The emperors use their armies to try and enforce the laws, but they are outnumbered and can't be everywhere at once. Are these bandit gangs really that bad? Yeah. The 3 main gangs are the Tora, the Inishishi, and the Panda. Each one is controlled by a Sennin who can summon giant beasts that can destroy an entire village. Even without their summons they are very powerful and they are the only ones who have the summoning contracts. She looked up at Naruto who seemed depressed. I'll come back later. When you are feeling better I'll show you around town. With that, she left Naruto alone once again. His head was buzzing with this new information. Shinobi skills were being used by bandits and causing problems. This wasn't right, but, then again, was it his problem? He had his own home to go back to and had to do it quickly. Also, one person can't solve all the world's problems. He reached for the necklace that Tsunade gave him and held it tightly. he would make it back home. He had to see them all again and make sure they were okay. Even if most of the people back home hated him, he would go back for the few people who were precious to him. Someday, he would return. Well, that's it for now. So, how was it? I'm working on translations for some jutsus, so if anyone is willing to help it would be greatly appreciated. Or, if you have any ideas for fox-related jutsus, let me know. To clear up any confusion, the Senin in this continent have shinobi skills but are bandits. There are no shinobi villages and the Emperor's armies don't have enough people who know ninjutsu or genjutsu to stop them and are outnumbered. Kyuubi is dead but has left a parting gift to Naruto and now can summon foxes. True to her word, Mai took Naruto into town as soon as he was feeling better. She didn't expect him to recover the next day thanks to his healing powers. She voiced her concerns, saying that he shouldn't push his body too much. Naruto just smiled and told her that he was fine. She, however, didn't stop worrying and said that he should stay in bed at least the rest of the week. That changed as Naruto used a very powerful puppy dog pout on her. The ears and tail added to its strength and she caved. It felt good to be walking around once again. Naruto had borrowed some clothes for Daiki and was now wearing jeans and a plain gray shirt. A hole had been cut in the jeans for Naruto's tail. Once outside, Naruto noticed that the Uchihas were farmers. Their fields seemed to go on forever. The beach he was found on was about 5 miles away. Mai likes long walks on the beach. The house itself was a simple 2-story building that was painted red. In a way, Naruto was happy for the long walk into town. It would give him time to think. One of the heavier questions on his mind concerned the members of the team that was sent to rescue Sasuke. Were Neji, Choji, Shikamaru, Lee, and Kiba all right? Then he remembered Tsunade's medical skills and he stopped worrying so much. When he began to think of her, he was filled with hope. She was probably sending shinobi to search for him. He knew the odds were slim that she would find him, but slim odds had never stopped him before. Then his thoughts went to the village. They had probably forgiven Sasuke and Sakura was back to asking him for a date every 5 minutes. Sakura, that was a name he would never forget. He had loved her for a long time. When they had been assigned to the same team, he had been very happy. At the time, he believed that she would start seeing him as more than the demon child and prankster. But that never happened. The day he brought back Tsunade was when that fact hit him in the face. She had run right past him and went right to Sasuke, crying. No thank, or I was worried about you since you never said goodbye, or anything like that. It was then he decided to let her go. Since he could never have her heart, he decided to do whatever it took to make her happy. That was the reason why he promised to bring the Teme back. He wanted to make her happy, no matter what. The town itself seemed ordinary. Homes and businesses were together and people were going in and out of them. It had a park for the children and he could hear their laughter. What came as odd for him was that half of the population seemed to consist of people with bloodline limits. As both Mai and Naruto walked, he saw children playing using their special powers. A child who looked like an 8-year-old version of Haku was using ice mirrors to play a game of tag. The other children looked like an Aburame, a child with 6 arms, another kid with mouths on his hands, and a kid, unknown to Naruto, who could control magnetic forces. No one, other than Naruto, seemed surprised by this. In fact, few people gave him a second look. Those that did had hearts where their eyes should have been. While Mai showed him the town, Naruto looked for work. The odd thing was that they all said to come back at the end of the month. Luckily, he had someone he could ask. It's because it's almost time for the Hyuga clan to leave, she said simply. Seeing the look of confusion on his face, she continued. The Hyuga clan is nomadic. They travel around the different dynasties, moving from area to area. When one of them falls in love with someone out of the clan, that person settles down. I think my father said that there are 8 groups of Hyugas. He also said something about a caged bird. To say this surprised Naruto would be an understatement. He was in utter shock. The Hyuga clan, the most prestigious clan back home, were nomads here. Can you show me where they are staying? He asked. Sure, she said as she began to walk in the intended direction. Can I ask why? I just want to see them, he said. Back home, the Hyuga clan is stuck up. They're just so formal about everything. Also, they aren't really big on being, well, a family. It's kind of hard to explain. Mai was shocked. A Hyuga was stuck up. When the hell did that start? When they reached the edge of the town, opposite of where they entered, Naruto saw a small encampment. There were about 70 large tents. Outside, he saw children playing with their parents while the older kids and teens were cleaning and chatting. Sitting in front of a tent, he could see a mother rocking a baby to sleep. They were all seemed to wear clothing that seemed to be patched up. The normal unfeeling face he held of the Hyuga clan could not be found here. They were all smiling happily. Naruto couldn't help but smile. "I hope the rest of you can find this," said Naruto as he looked up at the sky. He couldn't help but think of the other Hyugas and their imprisoned state. "What?" asked Mai with a confused look on her face. "Nothing," he replied, shaking his head. "Well, let's get back to your house before your parents worry." They turned to leave, but Naruto shot one last glance at the people who were free like bird. The next month passed by quickly. Naruto had a lot on his plate. Using his shadow clones, he was able to help Daiki out in the fields. "Hey, being able to create 50 of yourself comes in handy." "That's amazing," said Daiki as he watched the clones plant new seeds and other such things. "I have never heard of a jutsu that lets someone make physical copies of themselves." Naruto nodded. "It's only known by the people in my village," he said. "Probably created after your ancestors left." While his clones did their work, Naruto began to discover more about his new body. He still had unbelievable stamina and enough chakra to make a Jonin jealous. Using meditation, he would enter the soul room and read about his new forms and some jutsus that the fox had left. The fox also had an amazing amount of knowledge that baffled the blonde. Over the month, he learned about demonic politics. Basically, they fought until anyone who disagreed with them were dead, hence a lot of fighting. Cooking, one of Kyuubi's hobbies. History of the human world. At last he knew what killed the dinosaurs, and psychology. Kyuubi had issues. When he was done, Naruto would come back to the real world and practice what he learned. By the end of the month, he had learned how to activate all of his forms, 3 new jutsus that he had never heard about, and 1 that belonged to Ero Sennin. He also began to do some exercises that would help with chakra control and increase it as well. By the end of the month he had learned more than he did with both of his perverted teachers. Back in the Leaf Village, at the end of the month, Tsunade was in a meeting with the council. She had called this meeting after receiving a letter from Jiraiya about Akatsuki and Orochimaru. "Well, Tsunade-sama," said Danzo. "What is so important that you all us?" "My former teammate just sent me new information about Akatsuki," she stated. "They are no longer a concern to us," said Homura. "The demon is gone. Why should we care?" "They are going after Orochimaru," said Tsunade as she grit her teeth. "They had no respect for the dead." "Why?" asked Danzo. "They are blaming him for the death of Naruto," said Tsunade. "He first endangered the life of Gaara with his plan to destroy the village. Now, in his latest scheme, Naruto has died. They're pissed that they have lost their most prized target. So they want his head. According to Jiraiya, they are gathering their forces to wage war against the Sound. It will be power versus numbers." The council nodded. The Sound had the numbers and Akatsuki had powerful S-class criminals on their side. "It looks like that brat finally did something right," said Kaharu after a while. "We should let them fight and then take them out when they are done." "I agree," replied Tsunade with an icy tone. "Tsunade-sama," said Danzo, "I have a request. Please release Sasuke into my care." "Out of the question. Please hear me out," said Danzo calmly. "The village needs the Uchiha clan. However, with one being a missing nin and the other sentenced to live in our prison, the clan looks like it will die. But my plan will at least make him useful to us. I plan on turning him into a mindless tool for the village. He will have no emotions and be our puppet." "Are you will to risk him escaping again?" responded Tsunade. "I let you free have your way last time and we lost a nurse. Had you listened to me, that girl would still be alive." "Then how about this?" replied Danzo again. "How about artificial insemination to rebuild the clan?" "No," said Tsunade. "I will not allow you to rebuild that clan in such a means." "Tsunade-sama," said Kaharu. "I also have an idea, but not about the Uchiha clan." "What?" was her answer. "I think that we should take precautions in case you are unable to choose the next Hokage. I mean, look at what happened after the Chunin exam. A backup should be ready. May I suggest Kakashi?" He has the support of the village. After all, he is known for making logical decisions. Tsunade slammed her palms into the table. No, she shouted. That man is not worthy of the title. He relies on that eye of his. He is also late for everything except to get the latest Paradise book. No, I will not allow him to become Hokage. She got up and moved to the door, but stopped as an idea came to mind. She turned back to them. But the idea is good. As my emergency replacement I chose Guy. With that she left the room, while the council looked utterly shocked. She'd rather have Guy as Hokage. Later that day she told Guy about the meeting and her decision. I will do my best with the power of youth, shouted Guy. But, why me? 1. I hate Kakashi and don't want him to be Hokage, said Tsunade. 2. What you have done with Lee is a miracle. A creepy miracle. But a miracle nonetheless. He was dead last in his class and now he is one of the best genins we have. Other Jonin sensei would have marked him as a lost cause, had done everything they could to get him to quit. But, you didn't. You treated him like family and helped him. That is what this village was founded on, family. Thank you, said Guy quietly for once. I will still be looking for a successor, but it will be nice to know that there is a backup ready in case I don't get the chance. With that she dismissed Guy and turned her attention to a new black picture frame on her desk. I wish you could have had someone like him. Well, a bit more normal. Back in the Milky Way dynasty, Zanku was not having a good day. Last night he didn't have enough money to stay at an inn and had to sleep outside. The next morning he had woken up and found he was tied up and being dragged by members of the Inishishi who had also stolen his Kirigakuon. He could see it sticking out of a wagon near him. Zanku sighed beneath the bandages that covered his mouth. He was dressed in gray sweatpants and an armless blue sweatshirt with a hood. He had short messy red hair that seemed to stick up, dark eyes, and tanned skin. Hey guys, said one member of the Inishishi gang, it looks like the kid's up. That's a great deduction shitface, said Zanku. Let me go and give me back my fucking Kirigakuon. And I'm not a kid asshole, I'm 15. One of Zanku's flaws was his swearing habit. Oddly, all members of his family had that problem. Kids got a mouth, said another as they laughed. How much do you think we'll get from that Zanbato? Maybe 3,000, said another. Zanku looked pissed. It's worth a lot more than that, he shouted. Let me go and I'll show you its true worth, numb nuts. Hey, look over there, said the first guy. He was pointing over at a group coming towards them. It was the Hyuga clan. They hadn't noticed who they were yet. Greed and lust filled their eyes. Greed for money and lust for killing. Hey assholes, they're mostly women, children, and old fucks, shouted Zanku. Just leave them the fuck alone. If you want to fight, take me. He never finished as one of the bandits hit him in the back of the head. The last thing he heard before he blacked out were screams. A few hours later, Mai and Naruto were walking back to town. As they walked, Naruto was getting more information on the Senins and their gangs. They are more like armies really, said Mai. The Panda gang controls the Pegasus dynasty. The Tora control the Andromeda dynasty. The Inishishi are in control of Virgo dynasty. Each group has about 500,000 members. So, they aren't any in this dynasty, said Naruto. Mai shook her head. I wish, she said sadly. They're trying to increase their power all the time. Right now they're setting their sights on Milky Way. Soon they'll start to stake their claims. Why don't you fight back? Asked Naruto. I mean, if everyone would just stand up against them, they could be taken down. Easier said than done, replied Mai as they neared the town. No one wants to risk their lives. Besides, if you piss them off enough, they'll send their upper member to kill you and those you care about. And if you survive, the Sennin will come personally. No one can stop their summons. Naruto blinked at this. Her voice, which was usually cheerful, sounded defeated. These bandit gangs took more than just their possessions, they took their will. Naruto realized that they had given up long ago. A few minutes later, the two found the town to be oddly quiet. Everyone had gathered in the center around a group of about 30 to 40 men. They all wore identical light brown outfits with fur around their collars. On their chest was a picture of a boar with an eye patch smoking a cigar. There was also another guy with them that was tied up. Behind them was a wagon that was filled with items that looked familiar. Well, I hope everyone is here, said the one who was most likely their leader. We have good news for you all. The Inishishi gang will now be offering this village protection. Well, as long as you pay. He gave everyone an evil grin that reminded Naruto of Gato. The leader of the group then moved over to a shop window, picked a rock off the ground, and threw it into the building. See, you pay us and things like this won't happen. Forget to pay too many times and even worse things can happen. He then pointed to the tied-up guy. He will be used as an example of what will happen. Hey shitheads, shouted the tied-up guy. Why don't you bastards tell them about those Hyugas you killed on the road? Everyone gasped. Some of the children started to cry. Naruto then remembered some of the items, he had seen them with the Hyugas. Well, that seemed to get their attention, laughed the leader. But, I think a personal demonstration is in order. The gang member moved away from Zanku. Their leader began to make hand signs. Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu. The people watched as the fireball consumed the boy. When it was done, nothing remained. Rest in peace, boy. Hey, let me go shithead, came a voice from above. On the roof of a nearby building was Naruto holding Zanku over his shoulder. Hey, shouted the blonde. I barely had time to use Kawarimi no Jutsu and I saved you live. You should be thanking me. Below, everyone was sweat dropping. Ah, don't they know that they could have gotten away if they were quiet, said one guy in the crowd. Idiots, said Mai. They are both idiots. Looks like we're going to have to teach this whole town a lesson thanks to you, said the leader. Naruto ignored him as he set Zanku down and began to untie him. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, said Naruto. What's your name? Zanku, he replied as Naruto finished untying him. He got up and stared at the gang. I so need to work out some stress. Do you think you can take them? I mean, they caught you and tied you up. The only reason those fuckers tied me up in the first place was because I was asleep. Listen, just help me get my Zanbato and I'll help you take care of these asses. Naruto grinned as he looked down at the gang. Deal, said Naruto as he remembered a certain redhead of the Sound 4. They have to be related. Naruto then brought his hands together like he was about to gather chakra. Bikutai. Yama. Zanku noticed that Naruto's tail began to change from a furry blonde-colored tail to a tail that looked like it was made of dirt and rock. Naruto felt powerful. Strength pulsed throughout his body. With a roar, he jumped down and slammed his fist into the street when he landed. The result was a huge crater and several nearby members being thrown into walls. Members began to charge at him and Naruto was ready to strike back. The first fist missed and Naruto gave him a soft palm thrust that sent him back several feet. Another came and a soft kick sent the next guy flying. Soon, all the members of the Inishishi gang had all their attention on Naruto. This let Zanku get his Kirigaku on. It was a large Zanbato that was shaped similar to Zabuza's. The only difference was that this was thicker and had slits in the front and rectangular holes in the back. He grabbed his sword from the wagon and jumped into the air. He noticed a group of 10 moving towards the crowd. Zanku made a downward thrust motion with his sword and shouted, Choan Bakuden. A loud bang was heard as a sound wave was sent out of the sword and moved towards the group. When it hit, it left a large crater, crushing the bandits. It's on now, bitches, he shouted as he landed. He then began to swing his sword wildly as he charged at the remaining bandits. The fight continued for less than 30 seconds. Bikutai. Kai, whispered Naruto as he changed back into normal form. These guys were weak. They had to be the genin of their gang. He walked over to where the leader lay and stared at him. Why did you kill the Hyugas? Don't bother Naruto, said Zanku as he walked over. I was there. There was no reason other than greed and the desire to kill. You're both fools, choked the leader, grabbing both of their attentions. When we don't come back, Anakemono will come here. The only thing you have done is sealed this town's fate. Who's that? Asked Naruto. Zanku answered him. He's a middle-ranked member of their gang. Like his name suggests, he looks like a fucking clown. But, he's the most dangerous clown you'll ever meet. Naruto nodded then turned to Zanku. So, which gang are you with? He asked. None, he replied. I'm a bounty hunter in training. So, I know about some of the more famous members. I was on my way here to take care of these shits for brains but, they got me while I slept. Naruto smirked at this. Then, he remembered the Hyugas. Did any survive? The Hyugas? No clue. They knocked me out right before the fighting started? Naruto's eyes widened. There could be survivors. Making the sign again, Naruto shouted, Bikutai. Reime. The fur on Naruto's tail turned platinum. He turned to the leader. Where are they? He asked. Not waiting for an answer, Naruto grabbed him by his shirt and pulled him close. Tell me. The leader lifted his hand and pointed in the desired direction. Naruto dropped him and turned into a bolt of energy that vanished in less than a second. Well, said Zanku after a moment. That bastard sure is interesting. He turned to the townspeople who were still in awe. So, what's for lunch? A bolt of energy appeared next to the grave field of the Hyuga clan. Naruto's form returned to normal as he was low on chakra. He looked at the bodies, not a sound was heard. The only thing that seemed to move was the wind. Many of them had gashes from knife wounds and others looked like they were burned to a crisp. This wasn't a battle, this was a slaughter. The thought sickened Naruto. His whole life he wanted to use powerful jutsus so he could become Hokage. But these people defiled those skill and training. Naruto was about to walk away when he heard a cry. He began to search for the source of the sound. What he found was the only survivor, a baby Hyuga girl that looked no older than a year old. Her mother had shielded her from the attacks, even after death. He picked up the child and began to rock her slowly in his arms. It's all right now, he said as he moved back towards the town. Your big brother's here now, so stop crying. Slowly, the baby began to quiet down and began to make cooing sounds. Naruto smiled down at her. This was a new experience for him and he liked it. Don't you see what you have done? Shouted a woman in the crowd. Zanku just wanted a bite to eat and here they were, biting his head off. This just goes to show what happens when you do a good deed. You get screwed. They had been yelling at him for the last couple of hours now and he was getting tired of it. They would have just taken some things and left us alone, shouted another. Now they will come looking for blood. They would have done it sooner or later, said Zanku, causing everyone to shut up. What, you think that those Hyugas were killed because they didn't pay? Let me tell you what I know about people like them. I was raised in a village in Pegasus that was under protection from the fucking panda. After they had taken everything from us, they started taking people as compensation. The last time they came, those assholes took all the women and children and sold them into slavery and killed all the men. I was hiding in the nearby forest when it happened. That was 8 years ago and I still haven't been able to find my mother and little brother. So trust me, sooner or later they will fuck you over. You sure have a way with people, said Naruto as he slowly walked back into town. Everyone turned and saw what he was carrying. Naruto let out a sigh. She was the only survivor. Everyone else was dead. Mai went over to him quickly. Here, let me check her out, she said. Naruto nodded and gave her the child. As soon as she left Naruto's arms she began to cry. Mai quickly examined her for bruises, cuts, and infections. She seemed well but she wouldn't stop crying. Here, let me hold her, said a woman with 6 arms. Mai gave her the baby and she kept on crying. The woman tried rocking the child to sleep, but nothing changed. That's odd, said Naruto. She didn't make a fuss when she was with me. Mai and the woman looked at each other. You don't think? Asked Mai. It could be, the other replied. She handed Naruto back the baby and she quieted up quickly and began to giggle. This is unfucking believable, laughed Zanku loudly. Feel better. I begin to mumble. Anakemono sat in a field about a week's walking distance from the village where Naruto was staying. He was a pudgy man in his late 20s that had black spiky hair that made it appear that he had a crown. In the middle of his forehead was a smiley face. He wore a red and yellow stripped outfit with a small cape on his back that had the silver boar on it. He had sent his underlings to take care of the village so that he could train. The promotional inspections would be starting soon and he was close to being promoted. Soon, he saw the figure of an 18-year-old boy walking towards him. He had short brown hair and narrow eyes. Think Jin from Bleach. In his hair were 3 feathers. He wore tan-colored Taoist robes and on his chest was the silver boar. On his hands were thick gloves. Anakemono knew who this teen was. He was the right-hand man of the Inishishi Sennin, Shuken. Somewhere nearby was his partner Suishi. Anakemono got up and bowed before him once he was close. Shuken-sama, what do I owe the pleasure of this visit? He asked. The men assigned under you have failed, said Shuken. His voice was giddy and his smile never left his face. This was just the way he was. His smile was fake. a mask that was used to hide a form of sadness that he told no one about. Was it the panda or Tora? Asked Anakemono. Neither, was his answer. They were defeated by a bounty hunter in training and a farm boy. Impossible. How could two weaklings defeat 45 lower members? Well, the bounty hunter has some skill. Also, according to Sushi, the farm boy has some new bloodline limit that he has never seen before. I will take care of this problem at once. I'm glad to hear that. Be sure to kill the bounty hunter. As for the farm boy, bring him to the base. Once he is brought there, the Inishishi Sennin will convince him to join us. When he finished, a whirlwind of feathers surrounded Chukin and he vanished. Anakemono sighed. This sounded like it would be too much work. He hated working too much, but he dare not complain in front of Chukin. Anakemono sighed again, began to walk. Maybe I'll run and cut the distance down to 3 days and get this over with. The next day in the village, Zanku and Naruto were sparring. Naruto was using his ice mode, which was helping his aim and weapons skills. He was reaching into thin air and pulling out kunai from nothing and throwing them at Zanku. Zanku used his Kirigakuon to block the attacks. After a while he charged at Naruto. Seeing this, Naruto created his own Zanbato and blocked the attack. Both of them had the same strategy when it came to swords, swing like a maniac. On the sideline was a shadow clone Naruto created before the spar began. The clone was holding the baby Hyuga in its arms. Every time someone other than Naruto held her or when she was set down, she would start crying. She was only quiet and happy when she was near Naruto. It seemed that the clone was able to fool the infant. Sadly, there is always an exception to the rule. "Hey boss," called the clone as the baby began to cry. "I think the baby needs a diaper change." Naruto and Zanku stopped fighting. Naruto looked over at the clone and rolled his eyes. "Well, what are you waiting for?" he asked his clone. "Change her." "Right, boss," replied the clone. The clone pulled out a blanket from a nearby basket that they had brought with them and gently placed the baby on it. Then it grabbed some wipes, a new diaper, and an instruction book from the basket and began to change the diaper. "Let's take a break, shithead," said Zanku. Naruto nodded and turned back into his normal form. He looked at his clone, which was struggling to put on the new diaper, and sighed. "I wish I knew a diaper-changing jutsu," he said. Naruto had gone into the soul room when this problem first came up to see if the fox had left him that information. Hell, he would have taken any information on babies. Sadly, he could only find cooking recipes. Bad Kyuubi. "What is with you and that brat anyways?" asked Zanku. "I mean, why does she only like you?" "I have no idea. Maybe it's a Hyuga thing." Hinata Hyuga was weird as well. "What the hell do you mean she was weird?" "She was always hiding around corners and stuff. She stuttered a lot and whenever I tried to talk to her, her face would turn red. Every time I went to check or move closer she would faint." "I see. Did she do this with everyone or just you?" Naruto crossed his arms and began to think. "Just me," said Naruto after a while. "You really do have shit for brains. Listen closely, that Hinata girl has a crush on you." "What?" "Yep," replied a smug Zanku. "Wow, I just thought that was a Hyuga thing," said Naruto as he sat down. "I mean, it happened a lot with the women of the Hyuga clan. When I was 5 I was walking down the street and this lady from the clan just grabbed me, picked me up, and started hugging me. She said something like wanting to put me on a shelf. Then there was that time a teenaged Hyuga told me to give her a call in a few years. And I can't forget the Hyuga nurse. She would sneak me ramen every time I called her Nei-san." Zanku's eyes were now wide as he stared at Naruto. "Naruto, you are the Hyuga pimp," exclaimed Zanku. He began to laugh when Naruto's jaw dropped to the ground. "All done," said the clone. "Well, at least Asahi has a clean diaper," Naruto said as he got back up. "Naruto, once you name it you have to keep it," said Zanku with a laugh. "That's not funny," said Naruto loudly. "I'm only holding on to her until I find another group of Hyuga nomads." "Right, you have to go back to your homeland," sighed Zanku. "Why not just take her with you?" "I just can't," snapped Naruto. The truth was he was afraid of what would happen to Asahi if he brought her back to the leaf. The Hyuga clan would place her in the branch family and the birdcage seal would be placed on her. If something happened on the way and Cloud found out about her and the other bloodlines on this continent, they would come for them. Hell, Orochimaru would come just to grab a new body. His best option was to find Asahi a family and leave her with them. Whatever, said Zanku. Hey Zanku, what do you know about the Senins? This was something that he had asked Mai earlier. Sadly, she had no clue what they looked like or any powers they had. Well, I don't know much. According to what I have heard, the Inishishi Sennin is a man covered with bandages, wears a fur coat, and is in the mid-30s. His bloodline allows him to control magnetic forces and uses iron sand. Well, that's what I heard. The Tora Sennin was recently replaced by his apprentice. The new Tora Sennin is a 17-year-old girl with green hair and has a gambling problem. She has a bloodline ability that lets her control plants. The Panda Sennin is very secretive, so no one knows what he looks like. All anyone does know is that he can clone people by using human scarifies. Naruto simply nodded and stood up. He was still wearing the cloths that Daiki gave him. The villagers had offered to give him new clothing for free, but Naruto had turned them down. It didn't seem right to take advantage from these people. Naruto, shouted Mai as she ran towards them. She was carrying a bundle of clothing. What's the matter? Asked Naruto. Is that clown guy here? His adrenaline began to rush. No, she said when she stopped. She held out the cloths she was carrying to Naruto. These are for you. You need something better than my father's old cloths to fight in. I can't accept them, said Naruto. Yes you can, insisted Mai as she forced the clothing in Naruto's arms. Think of it as payment for helping in the fields. Back in the Leaf Village, Danzo walked over to Sasuke's cell. Inside it, Sasuke was doing push-ups. He kept muttering things about dobes. He stopped when he saw Danzo standing in front of his cell. What are you doing here? Asked the traitor. I'm here to help you, Uchiha-san, said Danzo with a smirk. How can you help me? His question was answered when Danzo opened his cell door. Sasuke smirked at this and walked out. Now follow me and we will slip past the Anbu, said Danzo. Not that I'm complaining, but why are you helping me? The Hokage is a fool. She doesn't have the strength to do what needs to be done to ensure this village's power. If it means making a deal with the devil, then so be it. I will be going with you to help Orochimaru and help him train his forces. The third robbed me of Root and they will be reborn in the Sound Village. Sasuke nodded. It was no secret how much Danzo hated the third for disbanding Root. Now, the village would pay for their foolishness. They had locked up the last Uchiha and tried to keep him from fulfilling his destiny. Now, these two were moving towards Orochimaru to aid him so that they could all have their revenge. Tsunade was in her office when she heard a knock. Come in, she said, not looking up from her paperwork. The door opened and in walked Sakura. She slowly walked over to Tsunade and waited. After a moment, Tsunade stopped and looked up. How may I help you? I would like to train under you, replied Sakura. Tsunade blinked. She never expected this. According to the girl's file and Kakashi's reports, she didn't show much interest in her training. She had good chakra control and was at the top of her class in the book department, but that was it. It also said she had a talent for genjutsu, but Kakashi hadn't trained her in that department. To her knowledge, all Sakura knew were the 3 academy jutsus. Why should I train you? Asked Tsunade. I don't want to be useless anymore, she said as she looked to the ground. It's my fault Naruto is dead. In every mission I relied on Naruto and Sasuke to do all the work while I just stayed back and watched. I was useless in the Chunin exam and just got in the way during the Sound and Sand invasion. I couldn't stop Sasuke from leaving the village. All I could do was make Naruto promise to bring Sasuke back. At this point she was crying. I don't want to be responsible from the deaths of any more of my friends. Tsunade sighed. She seemed genuine. It was that or a well-prepared performance. Very well, she said after a moment. I'll give you a chance, just don't screw up. Thank you Hokage-sama. The next evening in the Milky Way, Mai and Zanku were conspiring. They were on the side of the barn. The topic: Naruto's past. He had kept many things from them and they wanted to know. However, when he did reveal something about his past it confused them. Sometimes, he had a sad look in his eyes. You ask him, said Mai. No, you ask him, insisted Zanku. You have known him longer. Ask who about what? Asked Naruto as he walked around the corner. Mai turned to face him and bit her lip. It was now or never. We were just going to ask you about your past, Mai replied. You can make clones that are solid, said Zanku. That must take up a lot of chakra, But I rarely see you winded. You seem to be afraid to take Asahi with you back to the home you want to go back to. And those are just a few of the things that we want to know. Mai saw the sadness return in Naruto's eyes, even though he kept smiling. He looked like he was replaying events in his head. But she had to know. She had grown fond on him in the time he had spent with them. He was kind and hard-working. He was trustworthy and honest. She just wanted to know more about him. Was that so wrong? Zanku's reasoning was a little different. Naruto was strong and he had no idea what his motives were. For all he knew, he was here to spy for the elemental countries. Until he told them, he was a threat. After all, friendship and respect were earned, not given. If you knew about my past, Naruto said after a while, you would hate me. Why? Asked Zanku as he narrowed his eyes. Naruto just shrugged. Most people just do, he said. Most of the people who know hate me and would like nothing more than to see me dead. There are few people who would willingly accept me. Don't you think we deserve a chance? Asked Mai. Naruto sighed. All right. I don't see any rocks around here, so I guess it'll be safe, he said. They couldn't tell if he was serious or joking. I was born in a shinobi village in Fire Country. On that day, a demon attacked our village. Its name was Kyuubi no Kitsune. Mai and Zanku stared at him with wide eyes. They had heard about them demon from legends. The Hokage at the time tried to defeat him, continued Naruto. The Hokage is the leader of my village because he or she is the most powerful shinobi. However, he couldn't defeat the Kyuubi, so he did the next best thing. He sealed the demon away. However, he needed a living vessel for this. Someone whose chakra coils were still forming, meaning someone young. Someone recently born. Realization hit Mai and Zanku. Why you mean? Said Zanku as he pointed at Naruto. Naruto just nodded. After that, he continued as he looked up to the starry sky, my life was hell. The seal made me the prison for the fox, but that's not what the people saw. Or, maybe it's what the people back home didn't want to see. To them I was simply the demon reborn in a human body. The worst part about it was that I had no clue why everyone hated me. I was alone. No one wanted me. Despite everything I kept going. My dream was to become Hokage and earn everyone's respect. I worked hard and trained every day. Thanks to Kyuubi, I could heal from any injury almost overnight and had enough chakra to make an elite jealous. But no matter what happened, no matter how much I did, all they saw was the fox. On my last mission my teammate, Sasuke Uchiha, betrayed the village to side with a human who acted like a monster. I went to stop him and was seriously wounded and left for dead. The fox couldn't save us both, so he gave up his life to keep his pride intact and because he thought of me like a son. With his passing, I gained these powers. Naruto stopped and looked at them. Mai looked like she was about to cry. Zanku still had his eyes narrowed. So, why would you want to go back? Asked Zanku. Naruto just smiled. I made a promise, he said. I promised that one day I would be Hokage. And I always keep my promises. Also, there are a few people who see me as more than a demon or its container. They're the people who are more precious to me than anything else in this world. I don't want them to worry. Why are you against taking Asahi with you? Asked Mai through her tears. The Hyuga clan back home enslaves its members, he replied. Well, not the main branch. If I took her back then they would place a cursed seal of servitude on her and she would have to live the way they told her to. He paused for a moment. Well, now you know. I understand if you want me to leave. Naruto turned and began to walk away, only to be stopped by Mai who ran up and hugged him. Why? You idiot, cried Mai. How could anyone see you as a demon? A demon would never help people and protect them. Fucking idiot, shouted Zanku. Who is stupid enough to think you are a demon? I mean, they're smart? A 5-year-old could outwit you? Naruto turned to him in a fit of rage. You want to fight or something? He yelled. Zanku just laughed. Soon, they all were. The next day the people of the village were out and about doing their daily activities. The children played while their mothers watched them. The bakers, well, baked and, why am I telling you all this? It's an average day in this village. That's not important. It's that guy who is just walking into town that I should focus on. Nakamono smirked. The village was ripe for the taking. All he had to do was take care of 2 brats and it would fall. He stopped in the middle of the village and decided that this would be the perfect spot to entertain himself. He made a hand sign and yelled, Doden. Doryuden. Back at the Uchiha's place, Naruto had changed into his new outfit and was outside with Mai. He was now dressed in white sweatpants and a blue sleeveless shirt. The pants had a small hole for Naruto's tail. He had chosen not to wear his headband since there was no real point. On the front of the shirt was a red fox's head with 9 red tails spreading out from it. At the end of each tail had the kanji from each of his tail forms, and for the last one was soul. The back confused Naruto. It's the yin-yang symbol, explained Mai. It represents balance between good and evil. It also shows that nothing is purely good or evil. I think it suits you well. Thanks, Mai-chan, replied Naruto. Suddenly, there was a loud crashing sound. Then, Zanku ran out of the house. I think the fucker's here, he shouted as he ran towards the village. Naruto nodded, shouted goodbye to Mai and followed Zanku. When they got there, several buildings were destroyed. People were running away, and in the center of all the chaos was Inakamono. The Inishishi bandit looked at the 2 teens standing in front of him. He assumed the redhead was the bounty hunter, judging by the Zanbato on his back. The other one had to be the farm boy that Chukin told him about. So, you two must be the brats that took down my men, he said at last. Funny, I expected something better. The only thing funny around here is that outfit, said Naruto with a smirk. I try, said Inakamono. It is out of kindness that I try to leave a smile on the faces of those I'm about to kill. Now, resign yourselves. Tawainai Suji Bando. With that, he moved his right hand up to mouth, which was shaped like a small O, in a way that looked like he was holding up a cigarette. Then, a purple-colored string shot out of his mouth and wrapped around Naruto. Hey, what the, yelled Naruto as the string hardened and he began to struggle to move. It's useless, boy. Nothing can get out of the Tawainai Suji Bando. Asshole, shouted Zanku as he charged. He swung his Zanbato at his opponent and made contact. However, instead of cutting the clown in half, the sword bounced off of him, sending Zanku back several yards. Sorry, boy, said Inakamono with a mocking smile. My body has a special ability that protects me from most attacks. Now, Fuusen ko Kyugaku. He opened his mouth wide and several purple balloons popped out. They flowed around the area between the two and then became stationary, meaning they're staying put. You think some fucking balloons are going to stop me from kicking your ass, yelled Zanku. Fushiken. He swung his sword, which made a humming sound, and several sonic blades were sent flying to Inakamono. The blades hit the balloons, which not only cancelled the attack but caused the balloons to explode. Zanku raised his free arm to shield his eyes. Inakamono rushed over to him and did a leg sweep that knocked him to the ground and followed it up with a heel drop. Naruto watched as Zanku got wailed on. He tried to move his arms to form a hand sign but couldn't. He had no kunai on him, and if he tried to make the Rasengan he would be hit with it since his palms were face down. Then, Naruto had an idea. He focused chakra into his hand, as instructed in the scroll's Kyuubi left, and soon his left hand was a bright blue chakra claw. He slashed out of the purple string and yelled, Jutsume, as he shot the claw towards Inakamono. The jutsu hit the clown, grabbed him, and sent him back into a building. What the hell was that? Asked Zanku as he got up. Naruto went over and gave him a hand. Jutsume is a jutsu that doesn't need hand signs or an instrument, said Naruto. Basically, it's a way to use chakra to slash through anything and can be launched at an opponent. The problem is, when launched, it loses power. Its true strength comes from close range. Inakamono walked out of the building. His clothes were torn and he had several slash marks along his chest. He was pissed. No one did that to him and lived. Screw the boss. He would take that freak of nature and skin him alive. He made some hand signs and called out his attack. Kikon Taku Warai. Naruto and Zanku were soon surrounded by at least 20 Inakamonos, and one was enough. They then heard him yell out, Fuusen ko Kyugaku. The clone all simultaneously opened their mouths and the purple balloons came out and filled the area. This is my ultimate genjutsu, said all of the Inakamonos at the same time. Not only are you seeing more than one of me, but you hear me form all directions. I'd like to see you try to figure out which one is the real me before you're doomed.
The fucker is right, thought Zanku. The clones mimic all his actions and attacks. Most of those balloons are fakes, but somewhere in there are real ones. He was cut from his thoughts when the Inakamonos spread their arms wide and then clapped their hands in a single motion. Suddenly the balloon rushed towards them. Naruto kicked Zanku out of the way as the attack struck and the field was covered with smoke.
Asshole, shouted Zanku. I didn't want you to save me. Don't worry, said the Inakamonos, you'll be joining him shortly. I don't think so, said Naruto, shocking everyone. The smoke cleared, in a dramatic fashion, and they saw that Naruto's hair had grown and surrounded his upper half with hardened needles. His lower half was taken care of by his tail. Harijizo was a success, he said as his hair returned to normal. It doesn't matter, said the Inakamonos, you won't be able to figure out where I am and I can just make more balloons. Face it, you can't win. Naruto smirked and bit his thumb. When you can't see or hear your opponent, said Naruto as he made hand signs, the only thing left to do is smell him out. Kachiyose. Doden. Kitsune Hora. With that he slammed his palm onto the ground and was able to pull his summoning. 6 small foxes shot out of the ground around where the real Inakamono was and bit into his arms, legs. Unlike Zanku's attack, they didn't bounce off and stayed on him. The clown's jutsu was cancelled as he trashed around trying to get the foxes off of him. He didn't notice Naruto make his most powerful jutsu with both hands. Soon his attack was ready and he charged yelling, Rasengan, as the attack hit him and sent him spiraling into another building. You can summon, exclaimed a wide-eyed Zanku. Yeah, said Naruto as he began to pant a bit. Don't worry, my Chan knows. I have been practicing over the last month, trying to see how far I could go. I'm not even close to the boss level summons yet, but I'm getting closer. Zanku was shocked. Naruto was a senin, but he wasn't like the other senins around here. If he became stronger then maybe. I never expected that, said Inakamono as he slowly walked over. He was panting heavily. The impact mark from the Rasengan could still be seen, but other than that and his previous wounds he seemed fine. But, it'll take more than that to beat me, and you both look tired. Then I'll just have to hit you harder, exclaimed Naruto. I only have enough chakra left for one more attack. Sorry fuzzy brows, but I have to take a page from your book. Bikutai. Tatsumaki. Naruto's wind tail turned gray as his wind mode took over. A powerful wind surrounded him and he began to fly through the air. A moment later, Naruto moved behind Inakamono and grabbed him and began to lift him up. When they reached 100 meters, Naruto flipped them around and they shot spinning head first towards the ground. Tatsumaki Renge! Yelled Naruto before they hit the ground and Naruto separated for him, rolling away on the ground as he turned back to normal. The force of this attack left a large crater. Zanku moved over to it and whistled. That shithead isn't getting up for this one, he said. He was right. Inakamono's body might have protected him from most of the damage, but it hit its limit. Inakamono was laying back down and coughing up blood. His arms and legs looked mangled beyond any recognizable degree. To put it simple, he was done with his life of crime. Zanku looked over at Naruto. He was passed out. Slowly, the villagers moved towards him and began to check him out. Someone called for a doctor. Others were yelling to give him some space. One thing was odd, however. Naruto, who was probably in a great deal of pain, was smiling. Shuken entered the room of his master, the Inishishi Sennin, with his hawk on his should. The Inishishi Sennin was sitting in a rocking chair holding a small china doll. He looked up at his number 2 man. What is it? He asked in a dry voice. Rei doesn't like to be disturbed during her nap time. I have bad news, said Shuken. Inakamono has failed. And according to Suishi, the hawk squawked, we have a new Sennin. A Kitsune Sennin. Well, that's where I am leaving off for today. Asahi means morning sun. I chose this name for symbolic reasons. The rising sun symbolizes a new day, a new beginning. Sorry about Sasuke, but I had to do it. It will make the story more interesting. Next time I will be revealing more about the other Sennins. I am also thinking of using the second movie as one of you suggested. So, I would like you all to vote. Also, I already have a fanfic with Isaribi and Naruto, so she won't be in this one. Sorry. Translations. Might be incorrect. I try my best. Fuusen ko Kyugaku. Balloon great surprise. Tawainai Suji Bando. Silly string bind Kikon Taku Warai. Mirror house laughter. Jutsume. Claw of the beast Kachiyose. Doden. Kitsune Hora. Summoning. Earth release. Fox's Den. Yeah. I know it's a rip-off. Bikutai. Tatsumaki. Tail shift. Tornado Fushiken. Melody blades. Tatsumaki Renge. Tornado Lotus. He was a man of few principles, the Inishishi Senin. His basic belief was to kill all who irritate him. Some said that this was because of the fact that he had burn and scar marks from head to toe, thus he was covered in bandages. The only holes were for his eyes and mouth. Some people wished that his mouth was a bit more covered because he had lost his upper and lower lips and his teeth were easily seen. The only thing that he wore over his bandages was a heavy fur coat. The China doll that he always held was named Ray, who was half covered with burn marks. Next to his rocking chair were two vases. What was that? He asked Chukin. His voice sounded irritated. Anakamono failed in his mission in one of the villages in Milky Way, said Chukin with a smile. Not only was he beaten by his opponent, it turns out that he could summon foxes. I wish I could have seen it. Just then, another bandit ran in. Inishishi-sama, I need to, he started to say but was cut off by a glare from his boss. Baka, said the Inishishi was iron sand began to rise out of the vases. Sensatsu Suisho. At that, the iron sand reshaped itself into needles and rained down on the poor soul who entered the room at the wrong time. Chukin last gave this body a quick look then turned his attention back to his master. What shall we do about the Kitsune Senin, Anakamono-sama, asked the unparsed Chukin. Kill him, growled the Senin as he began to rock back and forth. Send out the assassins. I want him dead. The assassins were made up of 4 women. They weren't strong, but they were beautiful. Like the sirens in Greek mythology, men were drawn to them and ignored all the danger around them. What were they like? No one really knew until it was too late. No one had ever survived an encounter with them. The only thing that was known was that their victims always had 4 lipstick marks on their cheeks. If you became a target for them, I could tell you only one thing. Enjoy your last night on Earth. It was 2 days later and Naruto was finally waking up. He slowly got up and saw that Zanku was sitting next to him. He was reading a newspaper and didn't seem to notice that Naruto was away. Asahi was in her crib next to his bed. So, said Naruto as he got Zanku's attention, any good news? Hell yeah, said Zanku as he tossed the paper at Naruto. On the cover was an article about that day's events. Word has spread, he continued. I bet this entire fucking dynasty knows about. Well, that's good news, said Naruto. So, I guess then they'll think twice before they attack this village. Zanku closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, his look was one of complete seriousness. Naruto, he said, this village doesn't concern them anymore. Well, it does, but it's not a high priority. You are. When he said that, he pointed to Naruto for emphasis. It will be the same with the other shit-brained senins, they won't let someone else like them rise to power. It will alter the balance they have between them. Also, they won't let the people have fucking hope. It will undo all the fear they have placed in the people. They will send everything they got at you and kill you to make an example. Naruto could only nod. At least they would go after him first and not the village. But, there were other villages out there and 2 other gangs trying to make their claim. Once they heard about him, they would try to kill him. It was like he was placed in their version of the bingo book. You said that guy the first fought was just a middle member, said Naruto. With Zanku's nod he continued. So, how does the ranking system work? And they are all coming after me. That's just great. Naruto had begun to realize how much he had relied on the Kyuubi's chakra to win. He had only beaten Haku because of Kyuubi as well as Gaara. His fight against Kiba had been won by dumb luck. He had been helpless against Itachi and Kisame. Kabuto had nearly kissed him. Now, without it, he was on his own. Not all at once, said Zanku. Even the Emperor would notice an army coming towards his border and do something. Well, at least try to. So, we are going to have to make you stronger. The 2 of us are going to go on a training journey and become stronger. Naruto looked at him like he was crazy. Well, maybe that was because he was. Before Naruto could say anything, Mai ran into the room. I heard everything, she said. I'm coming too. Like hell you are, said Zanku. We don't need the dead weight. I'm a healer, said Mai as she activated her Sharingan. Also, if I leave the 2 of you alone with Asahi, she'll pick up on your bad manners. We're not taking the brat, yelled Zanku. I don't think we have a choice, said Naruto. She's only calm when I'm around. Also, I need to find another group of Hyuga nomads to take care of her. Odds are that we'll run into them eventually. So, said Mai, does this mean that you are giving up on going home? No, said Naruto firmly. I'm just putting it on hold. I've probably been declared a missing nin already. I'll just take my time and go back when I'm stronger and hopefully they'll take me back. Also, his eyes began to narrow. The thought of the shinobi skill being used like this is sickening. I'll teach those bastards a lesson they'll never forget. After a short while, the others went to packed up. Zanku went to get some camping supplies and stuff like that. Mai went to pack her clothes and some medical supplies. Naruto only had the clothing on his back and the scraps on his old attire. Thinking of them for the first time, he walked over to them. He had kept them, and checked the pockets for anything useful. All he found were 2 pictures. The first one was of him, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Shizune. They had taken this picture shortly before they left to return to the village. Tsunade had her arm around Naruto and Jiraiya was being slapped by Shizune for doing something perverted. These people were the closest thing to a family that he had, so he always carried this picture with him. The other picture was of Team 7. Both Naruto and Sasuke were glaring at each other as Kakashi ruffled their hair. Sakura was standing in the middle with a smile on her face. Naruto had brought this picture along to remind Sasuke what he was throwing away. Sadly, he never got the chance since Sasuke wasn't in the talking mode. With a sigh, Naruto put the pictures in his pocket and tossed his old orange clothing in the trash. He then gathered as much of Asahi's baby supplies as he could and then picked her up as well. It was time to leave. Before they left, Aoi and Daiki said their goodbyes. You take care now, said Aoi as she hugged her daughter. Take good care of her, said Daiki to Naruto. I'm counting on you to make sure she's fine. Naruto nodded and the 3 of them headed out. In the Leaf Village, Tsunade let out a loud sigh. Team 8 had just returned from their mission to get a Baikochu to help them find Danzo, Sasuke, and Orochimaru. During the mission the team ran into some rock nins who were also after the bug. The end result was that no one got the bug. Not only that, all 3 of them were wounded. Hinata had several broken ribs, Kiba nearly lost a leg, and Shino had a broken arm. This was just the latest in a long run of failed missions and disasters. After Tsunade found out about Danzo's betrayal, she sent 2 Anbu teams to Sound to try to kill them. Once in Sound they ran into the Fuma clan and fought some of their members. It seemed that Orochimaru had tricked them into serving him. They fought and killed 3 of their members. The report also mentioned a girl named Sasama, however what happened to her was unknown. The end result of the mission was that the snake had moved his base and could be anywhere. Then there was the Mizuki escape incident. He had taken along with him the legendary stupid brothers to run to Orochimaru. Iruka had tried to stop him and was seriously hurt. He was lucky he would be able to walk again. When they had finally caught up to him, the potion he had made and used had backfired on him and what they found was a shriveled and powerless old man. Now she had to send Guy's students to stop a group led by Raiga that had taken over a village. She wished she didn't have to send Genins to do these high-level missions, but they were short-handed at the moment. It would be a few more years until they could become stable again. Over in another section of the village, Konohamaru was training harder than ever. Since Naruto's death, he had been training harder than ever. Once he heard it had been Sasuke who had killed the person he viewed as a big brother, he wanted to kill him. Iruka, who had noticed this change in him, told him that Naruto had never given into hatred. How would Naruto feel if you killed someone out of hate? Iruka had asked. Besides, Sasuke has been sentenced to life of imprisonment.
Then Sasuke escaped. Then Iruka got hurt. Slowly, Konohamaru began to hate. He hated Sasuke and the people who helped him. He hated the people who had praised him. He hated the people who had made Naruto's life hell. But, most of all, he hated himself for not being able to do anything.
Excuse me, said a voice behind him. Are you almost done with this training field? Konohamaru turned around and saw Hanabi Hyuga who was in his class. She was wearing her normal training cloths and had a water bottle and towel. No, said Konohamaru, I'm still training. Hanabi raised an eyebrow. From what she could see, he was covered in sweat and his fists were bleeding. His clothing had holes and grass stains. His hair was sticking to his head. In short, he looked like hell. Mind if I join you then? She asked. Fine, said Konohamaru. Just don't bother me. Hanabi went to the other side of the field and began to train. It had been a week since Naruto, Mai, and Zanku had left the village and hit the road. Things had been going well except for one thing. Zanku forgot to buy a map. Mai, who had never left her village, was a bad choice for a guide, and Zanku had only just arrived in Milky Way. In short, it was the blind leading the blind. During their time on the road, they were able to get some serious training done. Thanks to the shadow clones, Naruto could supply them with plenty of training partners. The training was basically fighting 300 shadow clones apiece while one clone held Asahi. Zanku, for some odd reason, had no problem attacking targets that looked like his new friend. The clones he faced attacked him in mass and quickly to build up his speed and reflexes. The clones that fought Mai went slower and one-on-one to build up her fighting style. Naruto learned that he couldn't use any jutsus while he was in his other forms that hard way. While he was training with his Earth Tail, he had tried to make a Rasengan. Once the clones saw he struggle, they smirked and proceeded to beat him up. After Naruto picked himself up, he decided to do some research, not that kind. What he found was that his chakra was redirected when he was in his different forms. For example, when he used his Earth Tail, his chakra was sent to his muscles. When he went into his elements like water or electricity, his chakra was directed to his molecules so that they could be separated and put back together. Naruto shrugged this off and continued the training. Sure, it was a disappointment that he could only use jutsus in his normal form, but the other forms were very powerful without them. Using Kyuubi's library, he showed Zanku the K's no Yaiba in case he lost his sword. Mai began to learn several new medical jutsus. Naruto tried to help them, but all he could do was repeat what he read in the scrolls. Naruto himself began to train himself so he could make the Rasengan with one hand. Now, they were on a road leading to a village named Algol. Finally, yelled Mai. It's been ages since I had a hot bath, and the village of Algol is said to have hot springs. We have to stop there. Figures, said Zanku. We finally reach civilization and she wants a fucking trip to the hot springs. I say we get a map, get something to eat, and get the hell out of here. Well, Mai-chan has a point, said Naruto, who was carrying Asahi. We could use some relaxation and I haven't been to a hot spring in a long time. We can still get a meal and map, so there's no problem there. Plus, we reek. I guess my nose was improved as well. Majority rules, shouted Mai. After a few moments Mai spoke up again. Hey Naruto, what were the hot springs like back in your homeland? Naruto closed his eyes and thought back to the few times he had been to them. I guess they were alright, he said. I mean, they were just hot springs. Nice place to go every once in a while, but not my favorite place in the village. What was your favorite? Asked Mai. The Ichiraku ramen bar, said Naruto with a big grin. Best place to eat in the village. It was so good. That's it, asked Mai. Your favorite place in the village was a ramen stand. Yep, said Naruto. It was the only place that didn't chase me out or overcharge me for my food. The old man and his daughter were always nice to me. Mai suddenly understood why it was his favorite place. It made his feel normal, human. Over the course of the week, he had been slowly opening up to them. He told them about some of his missions and stories about the pranks he would play. He tried to dodge the more painful memories, but Mai could see the pain in his eyes when he did. For what she could tell, Naruto had never fully shared his life with anyone and had problems trusting people on certain issues. Zanku, on the other hand, ramen sucks ass, he said, missing the point. Now tacos, that's something I could sink my teeth into. Hey, ramen is 10 times better. Tacos, you little shit sniffer. Ramen. Tacos, ramen. Tacos. About an hour later of arguing, the group stood in front of the entrance to the hot springs. So how are you going to enjoy the hot springs with Asahi? Asked Mai. I mean, she can't go over to the boys' side. Naruto smirked and made a shadow clone. The clone then used a henge and became a female version of Naruto. This is how, said Naruto as he handed Asahi over to the clone. With that, the group entered the hot spring. Mai wasn't worried. After all, it wasn't like Naruto would get to see her naked. Right? Yes, I am evil. A group of 4 women arrived shortly after the group entered the hot spring. They were the assassins. The target is in here, said the eldest, Mimizu. Auri, What does he look like? The youngest reached into her pocket and pulled out a piece of paper. He has blonde hair, dog-like ears, blue eyes, a tail, and whisker marks on his face, said Auri. Are you sure he's in there? Asked Rezshin. Just look up, said Kachu as she points up. See, Suishi is circling above. Shukan-sama said he would do that to tell us where the target was. With that, the assassins entered the building. Mai, Asahi, and the female Naruto clone, all naked, entered the female's side to find only one other person there. She had long light green hair that rested on her shoulders. Her eyes were a golden color. She had an average size bust for a girl of 17. She sat there in the hot spring drinking some sake. After a short, but uncomfortable, silence, Mai spoke out. Hi, she said to the green-haired woman. My name is Mai Uchiha. These are my friends, Naru, Sosumi, and Asahi. What's your name? Why would you want to do? Asked the teen as she took a sip of her sake. Mai looked down at the water. Just trying to be friendly, she said. The older teen gave them a short glance and then sipped some more sake. My name is Yuri Genshirin, said Yuri. She looked at Naru. Aren't you a little young to have a kid? Naru's face turned red. She's not mine, cried Naru. Yuri smirked. I'm kidding, she said as she began to giggle. That's when Mai noticed something about her. Those are beautiful earrings, said Mai. That they were. From the stud was a golden chain that held a single stone or gem that looked familiar to her. They are part of a set, said Yuri. When my ancestors left Elemental, they took these and left the necklace. These stones are very valuable. In fact, if I wanted to, I could sell them and buy a mountain for each stone. Naru just blinked. Where had she heard that before? On the boy's side, Zanku was pouting. Why couldn't this shithole have co-ed bathing? He whined. He was now looking for a hole on the bamboo fence that separated the two sides. Sadly, he was having no luck. The management checked the fence every night to make sure there were no holes. This is nice, said Naruto. He was lying down so that only his head could be visible. His eyes were closed, savoring the feeling of the water. His ears were flattened so they couldn't be distinguished against his spiky hair. Naruto, yelled Zanku as he turned in his direction. Naruto only opened an eye. Do you have any fucking powers that can give us a good view? No, said Naruto as he closed his eye. I would never learn a jutsu that would make me a pervert. I would use it to defeat perverts, but not become one. But I have needs, whined Zanku. Then let us take care of you, said a voice as the door opened. There, in the doorway, were 4 hot Hyuga women who had their bodies wrapped in towels. My name is Mimizu Hyuga, said the eldest. She appeared to be about 21 and had long black hair that reached her ass. I'm Kachu, said the 19-year-old woman. She had dark blue hair that only went to her shoulders. How are you? My name is Rezshin. Rezshin was 16 years old, bustier than the rest, and long light blue hair that was braided. I'm Auri, said Auri as she jumped into the water. She was the youngest, 14 and soon to be 15. Her hair looked exactly like Hinata's, only it was black. We're part of the special services that is offered by this establishment. It keeps bad boys from peeking. It was at that moment when Naruto turned his head to face the Hyuga women. As he did, time seemed to go in slow motion for effect. He slowly opened his eyes and his ears slowly began to rise. The Hyugas recognized him as the target, but something came over them. Kawaii. Soon, all 4 of them were blushing. Then Naruto did something that broke all of their resistance. He gave them his foxy smile. He's mine. They all shouted at once as they charged. Soon Naruto was surrounded by the 4 girls who were all asking him questions at once. What was his favorite food? Did he have a girlfriend? Did he like older women? What about me? Asked Zanku, who they ignored. Zanku then had streams of water running out of his eyes as the girls lost their towels. For all of you who are wondering, there will be no lemons. Yep, he is the Hyuga pimp. Zanku would have said more if it weren't for a loud crash from outside. Soon, the yelling of men and the breaking of doors could be heard. A moment later, men dressed in black uniforms with a panda on their chest entered the men's side. They were about to yell at them until they saw Naruto. Lucky bastard, they said in unison. The panda gang had entered the village. They were led by Enwu, a woman of 24 and was well gifted with the sword. She wore a white trench coat that was buttoned up and seemed a few sizes too big for her. She had long black hair and red pupil-less eyes. She had a bored look on her face. It was another day, another village to exploit. She had sent her men to gather the townsfolk so she could give them a demonstration. She heard some of her men scream in the direction of the hot springs. She turned her head behind her and saw 3 of her men tossed out of the establishment. A few moments later 2 boys stepped out. The larger one had bandages around his mouth and had short red messy hair. He was wearing gray sweatpants and a blue sleeveless sweatshirt with a hood. He held an oddly shaped Zanbato. The shorter one had fox-like traits like whisker marks, fox ears, and a tail. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. He wore white sweatpants and a blue sleeveless shirt with a fox's head with 9 tails sticking out from behind it. "I hate fucking pandas," said Zanku. "Well, they were useful," said Naruto. "Those girls wouldn't let go." Zanku stared at Naruto. "You're not supposed to want to get the hell away from something like that." Naruto just shrugged and stared at the woman in front of him. "I'll take her," he said. "You can take all of her men." "How come you get the fucking good ones?" yelled Zanku. "I want to beat the shit out of her." "I just figured you might want to beat up more than one opponent," said Naruto with a smirk. He hit the nail dead on. "Fine," said Zanku as he placed his blade on his shoulder. "Just don't take too long." With that he ran right past the woman, who kept her eyes on Naruto, and began his attack. "So what's your name?" asked Naruto as he gave the woman in front of him his foxy smile. "Enwu," she replied. "You must be that Kitsune Sennin that I have heard of. It is my duty to end your life." With that, she swung her sleeves and a barrage of throwing knives came flying at Naruto. "Hari Jizo," shouted Naruto. His hair and tail grew and hardened to protect him. The knives hit his hair armor and bounced off. A moment later, the jutsu wore off. "My turn, Otekiden." The fur on Naruto's began to harden and looked like needles. He moved it in the direction of En and about a dozen or so needles shot out of it. En, seeing the attack, reached into her coat and pulled out a sword that was still in its sheath. In a single motion, she deflected his attack. Naruto looked surprised and En had the same bored expression on her face. Snapping out of it, Naruto charged at her. When he got close he threw a series of punches and kicks at her. Each blow was blocked with the hilt of her sword. Inside her mind, she was analyzing him. He is loud and brash. He just attacks without a plan. His form is sloppy. The only real danger is his stamina and chakra supply. I know who to handle people like him. Then, in one motion, the hilt met Naruto's gut and sent him back several feet. As Naruto got up, En unsheathed her sword. Well, to be more accurate, swords. They were twin Chinese-style blades that fit in one sheath. "Time to end this little farce of yours," she said in an uncaring tone. She now had a sword in each hand. "I'm just getting started," shouted Naruto as he prepared for his signature jutsu. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto created 20 clones and they charged at their opponent. Sadly, not one survived. With fluid-like motions, En cut and slashed each of the clones as the real Naruto just stood there. Now it was her turn. She charged at Naruto and began her attack. "He'll start by dodging to his left and try to punch me in the face." She started out with a downward thrust and Naruto dodged to his left. He was about to counter by punching her in the when she twirled and nicked his side. Next he'll use the clone jutsu again and try to surround me. A moment later Naruto yelled, "Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," and surrounded her with 75 clones. They all charged at her by jumping into the air. She let out a sigh and raised her blades. Like with the first batch of clones, they were quickly disposed of. She didn't even break a sweat. The real Naruto couldn't believe it. "It's like she knows what I'll do before I do," he said aloud. "That's because I use logic," said En. "Everything in life should be followed with logic. Take the people of this continent. There are 2 types of people, the predators and the prey. Logically, the best way to survive is to be the predator. You, however, are an illogical fool. You are trying to take down the predators and you will fail. Think about it. Even if you defeat me, there are still over 1 million more like us still out there. Even if you defeat us all, which is impossible, other would come around sooner or later. Not to mention that you can't be everywhere and save everyone. Thus, your actions are pointless. Naruto just glared at her. I'll show you, he shouted as he charged once more. Time to finish this. With that thought, En began to move him. She didn't lift him. It was more like guiding him as he dodged his blades. A slash to his right and he dodged to his right to avoid it. Poke his right and he moved right. Thrush forward and he moved backwards. Soon Naruto was backed into a corner. This is it. Mido no Seiki. With that yelled. She jumped in the air with her swords in an X formation. A moment later she slashed a large X on Naruto as she landed in front of him. En took a moment to reflect on her move. It was perfect. It starts long before that attack is called out. Because she could foresee her opponent's attacks and counter them, she slowly destroyed her opponent's confidence and will to fight. Then, all she had to do was maneuver them into corner and then strike. It was only then did they realize their foolishness. She began to walk away when the dead Naruto became a log. What the? She started. She was interrupted as she was kicked in the back of the head by Naruto. She forward several feet and rolled out of it. How did you escape? You should have realized your defeat. I don't take things lying down, shouted Naruto. I am the #1 unpredictable shinobi of my village. I'm taking you down and that's a promise. I never go back on my word. En's face, which hadn't changed during the fight, finally did. She looked angry. No, she was pissed. Don't say things you can't back up, child, she spat as she charged. She didn't slow down as Naruto made more clones. This is getting old. Do you think you can just say things like that, brat? She shouted as she slashed a clone. Making promises. Slash, slash, slash. Are things only fools? Slash, slash, slash. Do. There was now only Naruto left. She ran right into him and plunged her sword into his gut with a smirk. That smirk ended as he went poof. He was she started but didn't finish. A rock below her that she hadn't noticed earlier also went poof and Naruto landed a powerful upper jaw strike. Naruto looked at her as she started to get up. This was almost over. Earlier, began Naruto, you said something about promises. What did you mean? En finished getting up and glared at him. My father used to say the same time, she said. He always told others that he never went back on his word. He told me that as long as you have faith, you could do anything. But, that was a lie. He promised he would stop the bandits from attacking our village. He died trying to keep his promise. Now there was a fire in her eyes. Since then I have used my logic and my opponent's instincts to survive. Not because of faith or some stupid promise. My father died a fool and I will not follow his lead. She charged at Naruto once again with her blades raised, ready to strike. Bikutai. Kaiu! Shouted Naruto as his tail changed color and texture. The blades went right through him and didn't hurt him. En just froze. This broke all the rules that she knew. Naruto wasn't done. Bikutai. Kai. Naruto's tail turned back to normal and he began to prepare his ultimate attack with both hands. Rasengan. The blue orb of chakra was rammed into her chest and she was blown away and only stopped when she hit a nearby wall. Why is he so strong? He is just a child with naive ideals. Those were the last thoughts of Enwu before sleep claimed her. Naruto looked over to where his partner was. Zanku was just finishing up the last one. Scratch that, he was done. Naruto-kun, yelled Mai. She and his clone were running over to them. Where were you? When we couldn't find you at the hot spring I got worried. It was then that she noticed the condition Naruto was in. He had several cuts on his sides and some gash marks. His body was caked in dirt and sweat. Kami, what happened to you? Just a little run-in with the pandas, said Zanku as he walked over. Naruto hugged the fucking middle member all to himself and I got the shitty leftovers. I think I should give you Asahi, said the clone as it handed Naruto the baby. My time is almost up. Naruto nodded and the clone went poof. Then, something unexpected happened. Naruto had new memories of the hot springs. Yuri came to mind. Then, he had a memory of Mai and fainted as blood gushed out of his nose. Mai shrieked and Asahi just giggled as she began to slap Naruto's face. Well, baby slap. What happened? Asked Zanku. Yuri was walking away from Algol. She was wearing a Chinese-style dress with a white tiger-style design and some arm bracers. She could have taken them down, but why do that? They were too weak for someone like her. She just sent 2 middle members after them. Let them have their fun for now. Tomorrow is a new day. The Inishishi Sennin was not in a good mood. His assassins were gone. They had become fangirls. They had turned in their 2 weeks' notice saying that they wanted to settle down with the love of their lives, the Kitsune Sennin. Sir, said a timid white-skinned girl with yellow snake-like eyes. The new Kitsune Sennin stopped you men in Algol. The Panda Sennin turned to face the snake girl. He had silver spiky hair. He was finely dressed in blue robes and had several rings on his hands. But the thing most people noticed were his eyes. They were a magnificent red that were like rubies. That was what his clan was known for, their gem-like eyes that had a clarity like no other. And sir, she continued, he knows your family's clone jutsu. Haha, how's that for an ending? It's all leading up to some big surprises. Algol is the name of a star in the Perseus constellation. It means demon star. Otekiden. Tail grenade Mido no Seiki. Gate to the underworld. Bikutai. Kaiyu. Tail shift. Ocean Danzo stood on a balcony watching the sound nins under his control train. In about a year, they would be at the level of his former root forces. And with the power of the cursed seals, they would be next to unstoppable. Danzo could remember telling the Hokage the odds of the sound winning against Akatsuki. At that time, he said that the sound would lose, but not before taking out a large chunk of their enemy's forces. Now, things were different. With both him and Orochimaru improving their forces, they would win and still be strong. He would prove to those fools that he was right, that peace was foolish. Tsunade looked up from her desk once again and groaned as more paperwork landed on her desk. Will it ever end? She cried. Sorry Hokage-sama, said one Chunin. They bowed to her before they left. In another part of the village, Kakashi was reading his dirty book as he walked down the street. Most people waved to him or shouted their thanks to him. To the majority, he was the student who finished what his sensei began. To others, he was a cold-hearted bastard and a hypocrite. Asuma and Kurenai hadn't spoken to him since it happened. Hell, even Guy was avoiding him. Sakura glared at him whenever she saw him, angry that he didn't even show up to the wake. Ebisu only talked to him when he was ordered. At first, it wasn't so bad. No guy challenging him or putting up with cigarette smoke or stuff like that. But, slowly, he began to miss it. He began to feel alone. The people who he knew best refused to recognize him anymore. He had become scum in their eyes. He stopped when he reached his destination, the memorial stone. His eye fell on the names of his father, Obito, Rin, and his sensei. For a second, he started to look for Naruto's name until he remembered. Naruto's name was never placed on it. Memories came back to him. His father's shame of failing his mission just to save the lives of his comrades. Obito telling him that those who abandoned theirs comrades were less than trash. Rin, who had died while on patrol, just before she sent out the warning the Kyuubi was coming. The Yondaime, his sensei, who gave up his life to save the village. Each one cared for their comrades more than anything else. But why? He followed the rules, and that's what has gotten him to the point he was at today. If his father had just followed the rules and done what he was supposed to, his mission would have been a success and the war might have ended sooner. If Obito had just followed the rules, he could have lived. If Rin hadn't tried to save the others in patrol, she too could have lived. He tried to remember them by telling others what they believed in. Or, that's what he told others. The second part of his test, in truth, was so that he wouldn't have a genin team. He didn't want to be a genin sensei, never did. The only reason he passed them was not because they proved they cared, it was because Sasuke was there. In his eyes, Sakura and Naruto should have quitted the program. They had no talent and he didn't want to train them. The Chunin exam was supposed to crush their spirit so that they would quit. Now, he was paying the price for his selfishness. Hello Kakashi-senpai, said Yugo as she walked up to the stone. She had a rose in her hand. Hello Yugo, replied Kakashi. What's new? Nothing much, she answered. I'm thinking of becoming a Jonin sensei next year. Try to help the next generation, ya know? No, said Kakashi. I don't. Back in the Celestial Dynasties. Recall all of our forces, yelled the Panda Sennin. We need to begin recruiting as many new members as possible. Sir, what should we do about the Kitsune Sennin? Asked his number 2, Shinha. We will deal with him in 3 years, replied her master. He may know the Kage Bunshin, but he can't know the special secrets of the jutsu. In any case, we will let the other two senins waste their forces on him. They will be weakened and then, we will strike. Yuri Genshirin was sitting in front of a slot machine, trying to win. Sadly, the family gambling curse was still strong. Sure, she would steal back her losses, but she had to win sooner or later, right? Tora-sama, said her right-hand man, Yokazi. Unknown to them, Orochimaru had made Zaku to mimic his clan's abilities. Sadly, there is nothing that can compare to an original. He wore a white tiger-colored vest and matching baggy pants. His hair was a curly red and his eyes were a light green color. What is it, Yokazi? Said Yuri as she got up. The two you asked for have been sent and will strike as soon as they get the chance, he said. If I may ask, why not send a higher member? It would be a waste of power, she replied as she began to walk out. Besides, these two will finish him off without touching him. You see they. Oh my Kami, that's so kawaii. She then ran up to the stuffed animal section and stared at one of them. Yokazi sighed. It was one of her weakness. Gambling, sake, and animals that looked cute. Why are all they really strong people crazy? Naruto and his friends woke up a few days later to find they were surrounded. Ever since the fight against En, the group had decided to camp out to avoid property damage and so that they would be harder to find. Now, they had realized a small problem. They were easier to surround. Naruto and Zanku exited the tent while leaving a shadow clone and the girls in the tent. A group of 10 masked figures had surrounded the tent. Only 10, said Zanku with a yawn. It should make a nice warm-up. Something looks familiar about these guys, said Naruto as he tensed up. Their clothing resembled Haku's hunter nin uniform. One of them moved towards them in a slow manner. As he moved closer, Naruto's eyes grew wide. Naruto Uzumaki, said the leaf hunter nin. By the order of the Hokage, we are ordered to return you to the village. I suggest you don't resist. He turned to another member of the group. Grab the other 3, they are coming with us. The 9, in a flash, had grabbed Mai, Zanku, and a crying Asahi. Hey, shouted Naruto. Leave them alone. They aren't part of the village and they haven't done anything. He was cut off as one of the hunter nins hit a pressure point on his neck, causing his to fall into a deep sleep. Naruto woke up several hours later to find himself rocking back and forth. Quickly regaining his thoughts on what happened, he realized that he was in a cell on a ship. Zanku was cursing up a storm and Mai had curdled into a ball. Asahi was nowhere to be seen, but he could hear her crying. Sorry about this, was all Naruto could say. Damn it, why the hell were we grabbed, yelled Zanku. I don't know, said Naruto. I don't even know how they figured out where I was. I'm in the dark as much as you two. Naruto-kun, said Mai. What's going to happen now? Naruto's silence was their only answer. Time passed slowly on the ship. Eventually, Asahi was given back to Naruto because they couldn't get her to stop crying. They were fed once a day for about a week. They never spoke to the crew or anything else. Naruto and his friends tried to pass the time by talking about things that were of a more pleasant nature. When the week ended, the hunter nin came down and told them that they had arrived in Fire Country and knocked them out again. What the hell is wrong with you? Shouted a familiar voice that woke Naruto up. I told you to bring him back, not kidnap innocent civilians. But Tsunade-sama, began the headhunter nin. At this, Naruto shot up out of the couch he was laying on. He found himself in the Hokage's office. In the room were Tsunade and the hunter nin that had ordered the kidnapping of his friends. They were now both facing him. Oba-san, he said in a weak voice. Before he could say anything else, Tsunade rushed over to him and gave him a great big hug. Naruto could feel the tears pouring out of her eyes. Then she let go and hit him upside the head. Don't call me that, she yelled. She then hit him again. That's for making me worry. Sorry, said Naruto. Then he remembered Zanku, Mai, and Asahi. He turned to the hunter nin. Where are my friends, you bastard? Don't worry, Naruto, said Tsunade as she held on to his shoulders. They're fine, trust me. Now, I want you to tell me everything that has happened since your fight with Sasuke. Naruto gave her a nod and told her everything. He told her how the fox gave up its life to save his and the powers that he got. He told them about the people who lived there. He told her about the bandit gangs and the senins who controlled them. We have to do something, said Naruto at the end. Those people need help or at least some way to defend themselves. Naruto, said the older woman in a businesslike tone. Please consider what you are saying. You are asking me to send shinobi to a different continent to fight people who are near cage level. Also, what if the other nations get word of this? What will happen then? But, Obaa-san, we have to do something, he pleaded. Tsunade just rubbed her temples. I'll think about it, she said. Now, report to the hospital for a full checkup. I want to make sure you are all right. I'll have someone escort your friends while you are being examined by Shizune. Naruto nodded and left. It was as he expected. People stared at him and muttered things behind his back as he walked to the hospital. It was the same in the hospital. People stared at him and avoided him unless they had no choice. Shizune, on the other hand, was happy to see him. She did a quick checkup on him while asking him all sorts of questions. What was it like? Was he scared? How was the food? These questions continued until Naruto's ears twitched at a familiar sound. I think my friends are here, said Naruto. Shizune gave him a questioning look. Which ones and how can you tell? She asked. Then she heard a baby's cry. A moment later Mai walked in with the others and handed him Asahi. This is really getting old, she said. Naruto scratched the back of his head. Sorry about this. Oh, guys, this is Shizune Nisan. Nisan. This is Mai-chan, Zanku, and this Asahi, he said as he pointed to the older two and held up the youngest. Mai blushed when Naruto added the chan suffix to her name. It's nice to meet you all, said Shizune. Naruto, you can go now. He gave her a nod and then headed out the door. As soon as they were out of the hospital, he asked where they were. Mai told him that they were taken to a cell and questioned. Apparently, the hunter Nins had brought them back for information and to help rebuild the Uchiha clan. I couldn't believe it, said Mai as they walked down a street. They want me to marry this Sasuke and help rebuild the clan. Who do they think they are anyways? The fuckers questioned me on information about Celestial, complained Zanku. Now, how the fuck are we going to get home? Well, said Naruto, I asked Tsunade Obasan to help with the problems back in Celestial. If she agrees, I'm sure that she'll let you both go back. Naruto-kun, came a loud voice from behind them. Naruto began to chant a sutra that sounded like, please not him. A moment later Naruto began to curse Kami as he was standing face to face with Lee in all of his spandex glory, horror. I see you are back. The flames of youth truly shine bright in you. Yosh. Mai quickly hid behind Naruto. Naruto-kun, who is he? She asked quietly, and are those eyebrows real? Yeah, who is this shithead? Asked Zanku. Rock Lee and sadly yes, he answered. Naruto-kun, I see you have made some changes to your appearance since we last meet, said Lee. Long story, said Naruto. Fuzzy brows, I'm a bit busy right now. Perhaps we could meet again later. Like say, when you lose the spandex and do something about those eyebrows. I see, said Lee. I am sorry for interrupting you. I will be on my way. Yosh. With that, Lee sped away. Later that night, the Hokage called the village for an announcement. Everyone gathered in front of the tower to hear what she had to say. I am glad you are all here, she said. I have good news. A couple of months ago, Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha fought each other at the Valley of the End. In that fight, Naruto was able to keep Sasuke from going to Orochimaru. Something else happened that day. That day, Kyuubi no Kitsune perished. The crowd became restless. How can that be? Shouted one of them. The Kyuubi brat is still here. You're a liar, shouted another. Listen, yelled Tsunade. In order to keep its pride intact, Kyuubi saved Naruto's life by giving up its own. With that, Naruto gained a powerful bloodline limit. I have checked the seal and it is gone. Kyuubi's chakra could not be found. Kyuubi is dead. Now, before you all going praising Sasuke, I want you all to take a moment and realize something. Naruto is still the same person he was when he left. He was only the jailer for the Kyuubi and now he is free of the burden that was placed on him. Now, I want you all to explain to your children and the rest of the younger generation why he was treated the way he was. Everyone was silent and had their heads down. They had a look of shame on their faces. Some were even crying. In the real world, Akumu and Mugen were putting more charka into the seal that surrounded the tent. They were the dream brothers of the Torah. As long as the seal remained in place and or the victims didn't wake up, they would be stuck in a dream world that they would never want to leave. In a few days, they would die from dehydration. This was their strategy. Unknown to them, 4 women were staring at them with heated gazes. Dreams? Asked Yokazi. I'm not sure I understand. The Dream Brothers are seal experts, said Yuri with a grin. Years ago they created a seal which sends all those who are in the seal into a dream world based on a person's memories and knowledge. The longer a person or persons are in it, the better it gets. The only problem is that it can only create one dream world, and if there are more people in the seal, they all have to go to the same place. In a couple of days, they will be dead. Why not simply send people to fight them and kill them? Asked Yokazi. I mean, surely, such elaborate means isn't necessary. True, said Yuri. I could have sent people to fight him, however, there is the chance that they could lose. What makes this plan so much better is because he has to fight his own desires. He may act noble, but he is still human. He has desires just like the rest of us, and he will give in to them and perish. The next day in the dream world, Naruto was now walking with Mai and Zanku, and a clone holding Asahi, to meet up with the Rookie 9. They were all meeting up at Team 7's training ground for a picnic. Along the way, Naruto noticed that few people were glaring at them. In fact, he was getting smiles from many of the people who used to shun him. Once they got there, they saw them plus Team Guy. They were all sitting on a large blanket chatting with each other until they saw Naruto and his new friends come by. Naruto, shouted Sakura when she saw him. She then got up, ran over to him, and hugged him. A moment later, she let go. We were so worried about you. I'm glad to see you're all right. Naruto-kun, said another, quieter, voice. Naruto turned his head to see Hinata blushing madly and then remembered part of the reason she did that. Before either one could say anything, Asahi began to fuss a bit, causing everyone's attention to turn to her. Naruto-kun, is that why you? Baby, finished Lee. It seems as though Naruto-kun has done some unyouthful things while he was away. At this, Hinata fainted. I wasn't gone for 2 years, said Naruto as his eyebrow twitched. He then went on to explain how he found her. I just couldn't leave her there, he finished. I see, said Neji. Don't worry. I was informed that the cage bird seal is to be removed and the old ways abolished. You do not have to fear for her. Naruto blinked at this. Since when did the Hyuga clan start throwing away old traditions? Meanwhile with Zanku, he was getting to know Ino and Tenten a bit better. Hello ladies, he said. Let's leave this shit area and find some fun, the girls giggled. Sure, said Ino as she got up and latched around his arm. I'd love to, said Tenten as she latched onto his other arm. I think I'll like this fucking place, said Zanku as Ino began to undo his bandages so she could feed him some rice balls. He thought after eating the first one. This tastes like ramen. Mai began to talk to Sasuke. Apparently the village was pushing them together so that they could rebuild the Uchiha clan. Sadly, the odds of that happening with him were next to nothing. The reason for that was he was a condescending jerk. How can you call yourself an Uchiha when you act the way you do? He said in his I'm so superior voice. Where is your dignity? We of the Uchiha. He was then cut off as Mai kicked him in the balls. Kami, she said as she watched him fall to the ground. You are so annoying and stuck up. Besides, I happen to like someone else. After a few minutes of watching Sasuke pull himself up, Kakashi and the other Jonin senseis appeared. Sorry we're late, said Kakashi. We had to stop and help an old lady cross the street. Lair, shouted both Naruto and Sakura. Anyways, said Kakashi, ignoring the angry glares from his students. Naruto, tomorrow I want you to meet me for some special training. Really? Asked Naruto. This was very unusual since Kakashi only trained Sasuke. Kakashi gave him an eye smile and tossed him a scroll. I want that read by the time you get to the training field tomorrow, he said. Naruto opened the scroll and gasped when he read the title. It was the Chidori. His excitement soon faded as he looked down. Nothing made sense. Numbers and words were mixed together and formed meaningless garbage. He was about to say something when Sakura spoke up. Naruto-kun, she yelled. Naruto's eyes widened. Did she just call me Naruto-kun? Mai had tick marks on her face. Sakura-chan, what's the matter? He asked. I was wondering if you would like to go on a date, asked Sakura in a shy voice. Before Naruto could say anything, she continued. After that, we can help Haku-san move into his new apartment. I mean, can you believe that he's moving here? Naruto-kun. What's wrong? Naruto's head was now facing the ground. When he raised it, everyone could see the anger in his eyes. I don't know what's going on, he said as he formed a Rasengan. But, this ends now. With that, Naruto shoved the chakra sphere into Sakura. When it hit her, she vanished in a puff of smoke. Everything except Naruto, Mai, Zanku, and Asahi froze. It seems they have figured it out, said a voice. It came from all directions. So they have, said a different voice that also came from all directions. Who are you? Yelled Zanku. I am Akumu. I am Mugen. May I ask how you figured this out? When people are in here, no one ever questions it or gets suspicious. You have been the first. You screwed up big time, said Naruto with an angry look on his face. There are a lot of little things that are different. Some of the more noticeable ones are that Kakashi-sensei never says he'll help train me and Sakura would never just give up on Sasuke for no reason. But the biggest mistake was Haku. He's dead. It was what he wished for, said Mugen. To bring Haku to the village was a dream of his. We simply lacked the knowledge that he was dead. What do you wish? Asked Akumu. What are your desires? Asked Mugen. We want this to end, shouted Mai. Listen to that brother, said Akumu. They are so ungrateful. Here, they can have everything they want in this dream world. So ungrateful, agreed Mugen. Why would anyone want to leave paradise? Zanku, you could have everything you want. Money and women are yours for the taking. Mai Uchiha, you could be as close to the one you love always. Mai's face turned beet red. And let's not forget the Kitsune Sennin. All your life you have been mistreated by the real world, said Akumu. You have suffered and struggled. Now, you have a chance for all of that to simply go away. Just stay here. Stay here and have all of your dreams given to you. Stay here and live the life you always wanted. Or maybe you want to relive your life. Have the mother you always wanted. Never have to experience the pains of hunger and rejection of society. All you have to do is ask. I get it, said Naruto. Everything I want, I can get for nothing. Pity that's not the kind of person I am. Now let us. Naruto was about to start yelling when he heard other people's voices. They sounded very familiar. Let go of our Naruto-kun, shouted the voice of Reshin. Hey, who are you? Shouted Mugen. Hey, what happens if I do this? Said the voice of Auri. More shouting and yelling followed. While this was going on, Zanku looked over at Naruto and sighed. I'd give anything to have that power, he said. It's a chick magnet bloodline. Only a few minutes later, the world seemed to break apart. It was as if it was made of glass and someone had used a hammer to break it. The pieces fell down into a black nothingness and soon Naruto and company followed. The next thing Naruto knew was that he was opening his eyes. He was back in his text in the Celestial Dynasties. Naruto was about to chalk it up as a dream when he heard the Hyuga girls yelling at two other people that sounded like Mugen and Akumu. He quickly got out of his tent and saw that the four sisters were yelling at two oddly dressed men who looked like stick figures. So, said Naruto as he walked over to them, getting their attention, do you have any last words? How? Asked Akumu. How could deny what you wanted? Those were the things that your heart yearned for. It's true, said Naruto when he stopped in front of the two brothers. Everyone has wants and desires. The things we work for and try our hardest to get. However, I have lived a darker life than most and know that good things don't just start happening. They're things you make happen. With that, the beating began. A few hours later, Naruto and company were back on the trail. They had been out for about a day and a half. They had decided to give the Dream Brothers to the Hyuga sisters as a way of saying thanks. It also meant that they would have to leave them to turn in the two fools. Zanku then noticed that Mai was a little down. He smirked as he came up with an idea. Hey clone, he barked. Move your ass faster. He got behind the Naruto clone and began to lightly push him away from Naruto and Mai. Mai saw this and silently hanked her foul-mouthed friend. So, said Mai once they were alone, you and Sakura were close? We were just teammates, said Naruto. I wanted to be something more, but it never happened. I see, she Mai. So, do you have someone waiting back home for you? I mean a girlfriend? No, why do you ask? It's just that she stopped there. She was afraid to say it. Afraid to say the way she felt about Naruto. Mugen had spoken the truth. She wanted to spend as much time with Naruto as possible because she was in love with him. The more time they spent together the shyer she became around him. "We better hurry up," said Naruto suddenly. "I think your boyfriend is getting jealous." "What?" "Zanku," replied Naruto. "Wait, am I wrong? I thought you two had a thing going on." "What made you think that?" "Well, in the dream world you said you already liked someone. Then Mugen said that there you could always be with that person. I just figured it was him because, well, I have seen you two talk privately a couple of times and stuff like that." "No," shouted Mai. "We're just friends. Personally, I hate the way he swears so much. Also, he's not my type. The person I like is you." It was the 3-year anniversary of the death of Naruto Uzumaki. Some would think that everyone in the Leaf Village would have forgotten him, but it was just the opposite. On the anniversary day of the failed mission to retrieve Sasuke, they would hold a huge party. They would drink and dance in the street until the sun came up. Some would make a journey to the Wave Village where his memorial was and deface it. Some of the people who actually knew Naruto would just shake their heads and were glad Naruto couldn't see this. Tsunade was glad she couldn't see it as well. She was making her way to the Sand Village on a small diplomatic mission. Personally, she didn't see what the fuss was about, but the council and a certain clan wouldn't leave her alone until she did something. They asked her to try and see it from their point of view. She knew they only cared about themselves and, if they had their way, would send the village into a war. Stupid fools, she thought as she neared the gates of the Sand Village. I don't have time for this. Sasuke and the Akatsuki are my main concern. I bet they are hoping I'll die of sunstroke or something. Why did I ever take this stupid job? At least this gets me out of paperwork. "Papers?" asked the guard at the gate. Tsunade handed them to the man. He looked over them and then handed them back to her. "Sorry for the inconvenience, Hokage-sama. Rules are rules and all that. I will inform the Kazekage of your arrival." "Thank you," replied Tsunade. "I will be there shortly." The guard signaled another shinobi to head to the Kazecage's office as Tsunade walked by. She slowly made her way to the temple of the Kazekage, taking in the sights as she went. Not much to see, but after a few days in the desert, everything seems better. About 20 minutes later, she was knocking on the door to the office of the Kazekage. "Come in," said Gaara. He smiled as Tsunade entered his office. "It's good to see you again, Tsunade-sama." With that, he walked over to her and gave her a hug. In the last few years the two of them had become close like a nephew and aunt. Their jobs made it very easy to keep in touch, and when they got together they would talk about things that weren't village related. For example, Tsunade taught Gaara the art of gambling and, as expected, lost 30,000 ryo to him. "Good to see you as well," she said as she returned the hug. After a few moments alone, they let go of each other and started to get to business. Gaara took his seat behind his desk and Tsunade in front of it. Over the course of 3 years, Gaara had changed greatly. He had grown and wore a red trench coat and red pants under his cage robes. His gourd was nearby as always. But a physical change wasn't the only thing that was different. He was happier. He would make small jokes every once in a while and didn't try to kill people for pissing him off. He had become very popular among the females of the village to a degree that rivaled Sasuke's fangirls back when he was still in the village. In short, his life was good. "Now to business," he said with a sad sigh. "They're giving you trouble because of me." "You have no idea," replied the Hokage. "I can only imagine the problems you have been faced with." "We manage," said a new voice in the voice. Tsunade turned around and smiled at the newcomer in the room. "Hello Hinata Hyuga," said Tsunade as the Hyuga girl walked up to her and took a seat next to her. "Has it been difficult?" "Fangirls are scary," replied Hinata. "I can't believe all of the death threats I have been given. They seem to be under the impression that if they kill me then Gaara-kun will like them more." Yes, it was official. Hinata and Gaara had been dating for a while now. In fact, Hinata had asked for a transfer about 6 months ago to the Sand Village and Tsunade accepted. She left right away before her father or the Hyuga elders found out. That was what the problem was. The elders wanted Hinata back in the Leaf Village for fear that she would conceive a child with the Hyuga bloodline limit. Some just wanted her back so that they could place the birdcage seal on her and then kick her out of the clan. However, dating the Kazekage had its advantages. Since she was now one of his shinobi and his girlfriend, they could enforceably remove her without risking war. For some odd reason, sarcasm there, they didn't care. Hiyashi had a different reason for wanting his daughter back. After Naruto's wake, he had decided to become a better person as well as a better father. The first thing he did was try to mend the broken bond with his elder daughter. Things were going great. She had stopped stuttering and had improved in her style. While he didn't hate Gaara, he wasn't ready to let go of Hinata so soon. She was only 16 and was too young, in his opinion, to leave the village to get closer to some boy. Hinata had also changed. She was now wearing standard Chunin attire for the Sand Village. Her hair was longer and her chest was noticeable bigger. Her relationship with Gaara had done wonders for her personality. It started off as being pen pals. They would write to each other about things that were going on and giving each other advice on how to improve. Sure, their families helped, but having someone with similar problems helped. "Well, I'm happy to hear that you both are doing fine," she said with a smile. "Well, the walk over her gave me an idea to shut those fools up." "What is it, Tsunade-sama?" asked Gaara. "How do you both feel about being engaged?" she asked them. Hinata nearly fainted and Gaara's face matched his hair. "Tsunade-sama," cried Hinata. "I think it's too soon for that." "I agree," said a blushing Gaara. "This isn't something that should be rushed into." "Please," said Tsunade. "It's just a fake engagement. This will buy us time until you are ready, unless something goes wrong. Anyways, if they ask me how serious it is, I'll just tell them I saw the two of you doing it in this office when I got her." Now Hinata really did faint and Gaara was trying to hide his bloody nose. On a different note, she continued. "Has there been any trouble with Akatsuki?" "Not a peep," said Gaara as he calmed down and got serious again. "As soon as the war between them and Sound began, all their agents left the village. We know this because they all left at the same time the battle with Sound began. No one has come to seek the beast inside of me." "That's good," said Tsunade. She looked at the sleeping Hyuga girl. "I hope this lasts." "It looks doubtful," said Gaara. "As you know, as soon as Sasuke took over Sound, he made a claim the Uchiha clan would take their rightful place in the world. I fear that if he wins he will start another great war to prove his superiority." "The situation is equally bad if Akatsuki wins," said Tsunade. "They will pick up where they left off. Most likely they will first build up their forces again and then go after the other tailed beasts. The pervert still doesn't have a clue where their base is." Both Hokage and Kazekage grew silent. Right now two evil forces were fighting each other for dominance. One side was led by a team that half the village would welcome back with open arms and the other would only be a little hesitant before following the example of the other side. The other side was made up of the worst criminals alive to date. One thing was sure. One side would fall and they would know the face of the enemy they would have to fight. In the Celestial Dynasties, Akujin Henrin walked through a small town in the Milky Way dynasty. He has a 7-foot-tall man with no hair and a patch on one eye. He wore a brown vest with a silver boar on his back and blank pants with holes on both his knees. War hammers were tied to both of his wrists by leather straps. He was looking for his target, the Kitsune Sennin. Over the course of the last 3 years he had become a living legend. People knew very little about him. He walked from village to village in a small group helping out villagers who were under attack from bandits and other problems. He would turn in the bounty on the people he stopped and then would help fix up the town and provide any aid he could. Some people say he could control plants while others would say he could fly and others said he could teleport. The only thing that mattered to Akujin was what he looked like. He had a tail, blonde hair, whisker marks, and blue eyes. He imagined a man of at least 25 an incredible build to cause this much problems. Hell, all of the Sennins were offering up a huge bounty on him and if Akujin could get him first he could retire and his children, if he had any, would never have to work a day of their lives. Yeah, that much. "You are defeated, Kitsune Sennin," yelled a voice. Akujin turned around towards the voice and saw some kids playing. If he had to guess, they ranged from about 5 to 7 years old. The one who was playing the part of the Kitsune Sennin had on fake ears and a phony tail taped to his butt. There were their other kids ganging up on him. "No," said the play Kitsune Sennin. "It is you who are defeated." He then began to do some play punches and kicks and the other kids fell down. Akujin sighed and decided to continue walking. Scenes like that were becoming common. The parents would always speak highly of the Sennin and the children would follow by their parents' example. Soon, they began to emulate him by playing these games. Continuing his search for the Kitsune Sennin, he entered the best place to gather information and a drink at the same time, a bar. The bar was noisy and had several people that were doing various things. Next to a radio was a red-headed man wearing bandages around his face. He wore a black sleeveless sweatshirt with a hood and matching sweatpants. He was swearing, continuously, as he tried to change the station. There were several people playing games of pool, however there was a large group of people watching one game in particular. The match was against a guy who looked like a pool shark part is literal, and a young girl. She wore a blue Chinese-style dress with a dragon on it that seemed to be modified so that she could move around easier. Her black hair seemed to touch her shoulders, she seemed to be winning. "Hey buddy, put your weapons away." Akujin was snapped out of his observations by the bartender. "Put them with the others or get out," he said as he pointed to a space next to the door. There were daggers, swords, a giant zanbato, and chains all piled up. Not wanting to cause a scene, or at least not yet, he complied and put his weapons with the rest. He then took a seat at the bar and ordered a drink. Sitting next to him was a man in a white trench coat. The coat was buttoned from his waist up and on the back was the yin-yang symbol with a fox head under it and its tail circling the yin-yang symbol. He seemed to wear dark blue pants and on his head was a white cowboy hat with a 4-inch rim. The hat seemed to cast a shadow over his face. "Bartender," said the unknown person, "I'd like another water." "Would you order something else?" said the bartender as Get got out a pitcher and refilled the glass. "What's the matter?" said Akujin with a smirk. "Why not have something stronger?" "Bartender, I'll have whiskey." "I have no tolerance," he replied as he sipped his water. He had a young voice that sounded like he was a teen. "Besides, I can't afford to let my senses dull for a moment." "You a bounty hunter?" asked Akujin. "If you are, then I would like to make a proposition." At that moment a little girl who looked no more than 4 years old entered the bar. Judging by her eyes she was a hyuga. She had long black hair and was wearing a white kimono with a fall leaf pattern on it. "Nissan," she said to the trench-coated man. "Will you please teach me a cool jutsu?" He turned around and looked at her. "I'm sorry Asahi," he said. "The cooler jutsus that I know require much more chakra than you have. Just keep working on the leaf exercise for now. Trust me. It'll pay off when I teach you the bigger stuff." "But it's boring," she whined. "All right," he said. "When you finish the leaf exercise then I'll show you how to walk on wall and stuff. When you are done with that, I'll teach you how to walk on water." "Really, have I ever lied to you?" he said. Asahi jumped up and gave her brother a hug. Then she jumped down, yelled thanks, and ran out the door. "Nice kid," smirked Akujin. "Now, anyways about my offer. I have a plan to take down the Kitsune Sennin. You interested?" "Maybe. What's the plan?" "I have my boys coming into town in a few hours. They're going to fight the Kitsune and wear him down. They're lower members so it doesn't matter that much. Anyways, after that fight I plan on taking him on. But, it would help if I had a hand. All we need to do is find him first so I can tell my boys that he's here. When we win, I'll give you 30%. Now, doesn't that sound fair?" "That's an interesting plan. In fact, that sounds better than the last 2 plans that I heard," said Naruto as he took off his hat revealing his blonde hair and fox ears. He then turned to face Akujin. He could now see the whisker marks and his blue eyes. "So you another higher member? Why you're the Kitsune Sennin? But you're just a kid?" "Yep. You know, you are the 5th higher member this month. So, how about we just get to the fighting? I'll take care of the lower members after I'm finished with you," said Naruto with a smile. "You think it'll be that easy?" growled Akujin. "I don't know. From the way you were talking makes me think that you are super weak and need other to give you a hand." Naruto then got up and moved to the door. As he walked out he asked if Akujin was coming. After picking up his weapons Akujin followed Naruto out of the bar and then out of town. Once they were a good distance away Naruto stopped and turned around to face his latest opponent. "I don't know how you beat those others but I'll be the one to take your head," said Akujin as he got into a fighting position. In each hand he had his war hammers. "You see these? Each one weighs about 50 pounds and I keep them on me at all times. To me, they are as light as a feather." He saw Naruto raise an eyebrow. "Wow, 50 pounds. Well, that sounds heavy." Naruto said this in a mocking tone. This got the effect Naruto was hoping for. Akujin became pissed. "Mock me will you?" With that he charged at the blonde and swung his left hammer at Naruto. Naruto raised his right arm and blocked it. The sound of metal hitting metal filled the air. Akujin was shocked for a moment and then swung his right hammer at Naruto, who blocked it with his left arm. Once again, the sound of metal hitting metal was heard. Akujin jumped back and began to think of a new plan and what had just happened. Naruto smirked and then pulled up his sleeve. Akujin's eyes widened when he saw the weight bands around Naruto's arm. They looked similar to Lee's weights that he had on his legs. Each weight band weighed about 175 pounds. He was also wearing a weight vest that was double that. He had found out that the Earth Tail simply increased his physical strength using his current level as a base. In other words, the stronger he became without the tail, the stronger the tail became. Naruto pulled up his sleeve and got into his fighting position. Suddenly, Naruto was in front of Akujin and landed a punch in his gut. The sound of breaking bones could be heard as he flew back. Akujin slowly got up and coughed up some blood. "You are done," said Naruto. "The punch I gave you was at half of the normal level. If you promise to turn yourself over to the authorities, I'll ask Mai-chan to heal you. Or, you can choose to continue fighting and suffer serious injuries." "Screw you," he said as he slammed his hammers into the earth. Doten. Jinkujishin no Jutsu. The earth began to split in the direction of Naruto, who dodged it. "Not so cocky now, are you? I'll send you to hell myself." Doten. Jinkujishin no Jutsu. Once again Naruto dodged the attack. This one happened a bit faster than the last one. "Guess I have to finish this," said Naruto as he went into some hand signs. Raiden. Raikuago no Jutsu. A set shape of a fox's jaw made of electricity appeared in front of Naruto and shot towards Akujin. When it reached him, the jaws closed on him and sent a powerful electric shock into his body. Akujin screamed in pain and then fell to the ground as smoke rose from his body. Naruto put his hands in his coat pockets and walked away. He had a few more things to do. About 20 minutes later he found the lower members. He was lying on his stomach as he looked at the 50 lower members that had made camp near the village. "Wow, 50 fucking lower members just for you," said Zanku, who had appeared next to him. Naruto smirked. "Please go easy on them, Naruto-kun," said Mai as laid down get to him. "I would have thought you would want me to make this as quick as possible," said Naruto with a smirk. "After all, we have a date tonight. Just you, me, and a ramen-free meal. Maybe some candles." "That sounds lovely," said Mai as she leaned over and kissed him on the cheek. "But remember, I'm the one who has to heal them when you're done. We're the good guys, so we can't just leave them with broken bones and such after we put them behind bars." "Softy," muttered Zanku as he rolled his eyes at the lovebirds. It had taken Naruto about 2 weeks to come to terms when Mai had told him that she loved him. During that time Naruto had become distant from them. It was because he didn't know how to handle this, and he didn't know what would happen if something happened, like if they broke up. The feeling he had for her were also different than the ones he had for Sakura. With Sakura, he always had to try to be something he wasn't. He always had to find some way to impress her, and when it failed he got hit on the head. When he was with Mai, he felt safe and that he could be himself without trying to impress her. In the end, he had a talk with Zanku, who helped put this in perspective with much swearing. "Come on, Naruto-Nisan," yelled Asahi, who was jumping up and down behind them. "Kick their asses. You can do it." Sadly, her yelling caught the attention of the lower Inishishi member. The 3 teens' sweat dropped. "I told you not to swear around her," hissed Naruto to Zanku. "I can't help it. It's shitty genetic thing," he replied. Naruto just sighed as he got up. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Suddenly, 2,000 clones appeared behind him. He then did a henge that turned half his face blue and the other white. Naruto then walked over to the side of the hill and soon his clones followed. The bandits were shaking in the boots. Naruto decided to use the finishing touch. He raised his hand and all his clones screamed out at once. That did it. All of the lower members fell to the ground and put their hands over their heads as a sign that they gave up. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next part.